The biggest round of NHS walkouts in history starts today.
A very good morning, a very welcome to the programme. It's 6 o'clock, it's Monday the 6th of February. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Thanks for your company. Leading the news this morning, tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance workers in England and Wales will go on strike today. NHS leaders have called this the biggest round of industrial action in its history.
Liz Truss continues her comeback campaign. She's been called delusional, though, after speaking out for the first time since being ousted as Prime Minister, arguing she wasn't given a realistic chance to implement her radical fiscal plans.
A special diving team will use helicopter and sonar technology to assist in the search for Nicola Bulley. This comes as new CCTV footage has been released showing her movements about an hour before she disappeared.
And be honest, have you ever faked a sickie? Today, the first Monday in February, is when most people call in sick to work. We'll be asking if it's OK to skive off occasionally.
No, it's not OK, especially if you're an employer. But, I mean, have I ever pulled a sickie? I mean, it's been... I'm sure I have. Did at school, I always remember at school. No?
Well, no, you can imagine I'd have never pulled a sickie.
Never is.
There's no point pretending I have. I'm not as cool as that.
But you know, people who make a habit of it and people who build into their year, you know, will take six days off and nobody will know and whatever. Yeah. There's just professional, what would the word for them be? Just sickies.
Skivers, professional skivers.
Yeah, skivers.
I took a day off work in December when somebody had died and I felt guilty enough about that.
Yeah, well...
Because I wasn't sick, but I was genuinely very upset.
Yeah.
I had a day.
I think that the biggest insurance policy against sickness is self-employment.
You never take a day off then.
Yeah, if you're self-employed, you don't, because it costs you. So let us know if you're off sick, or if you're not off sick, or if you've got a view, maybe you're an employer and you want to talk about
maybe
this.
Just dream about it. I definitely fantasise about not going in. You know, just imagine if I could just sleep in tomorrow. Maybe you're just a daydreamer skiving like me. Anyway, let us know your thoughts.
The daydream skiver. There they are. You know how to do. Get in touch the usual way. Top story after this. Well, it's the biggest day in strikes in NHS history this morning as nurses in England and some in Wales stage a 12-hour strike over pay and conditions.
So alongside nurses, many ambulance workers will take industrial action in their dispute over pay and staffing, and patients could again face disruption to operations and appointments, though nurses are to continue providing emergency care.
Our national reporter Ellie Costello with more on this.
It's the first time that nurses and ambulance staff have joined the picket line together. It's poised to be the biggest strike in NHS history. So, who's involved? While continuing its series of strikes, the Royal College of Nursing expects more than 30,000 nurses to walk out across 73 NHS trusts in England. Previous action involved up to 55 trusts. The GMB union believes more than 10,000 ambulance workers will also take part in strikes across 7 regions in England and Wales. And the Unite union is preparing for around 2,600 of its members to walk off the job in 4 English regions and in Wales. All 3 unions are demanding better pay and conditions. They blame the government for underfunding the NHS and its staff for years.
And I've never been more concerned about patient safety, and nor have my colleagues. Patients are not getting the treatment they deserve, and we are not able to deliver the care that we've signed up to give them. All around, all we want is a better deal, not for just the staff, but for the patients. They deserve so much better.
It just can't continue. It's too heartbreaking. It's a job that I love, but I need to pay my bills, and we need to keep people in the profession. Nursing students don't want to be nurses. Experienced nurses are leaving. There will be no one left. And I don't blame them, but I can't imagine doing anything else.
The strike will cause disruption. Thousands of operations and appointments face being cancelled, and a bank holiday-style service is expected in many areas. 62-year-old Gary Coogan has been waiting for triple bypass surgery for nearly 2 years.
It feels like all the institutions you've paid into, when it comes around to you needing them, they let you down for their own reasons, but I'm not the one that's put any of these institutions into these situations.
When do we get it? Now! How do we get it? Strike!
The Royal College of Nursing has agreed to staff chemotherapy centres, emergency cancer services, dialysis, critical care units, neonatal and paediatric intensive care. The Department for Health and Social Care says that by accepting the independent pay review body recommendations, we have given over 1 million NHS workers a pay rise of at least £1,400 this year. Talks between the government and the unions are continuing, but union bosses warn there'll be more action unless a serious offer on pay is made. Ellie Costello, GB News.
Now we speak to an intensive care nurse at Liverpool Foundation Trust, and that is Kelly Hopkins. Kelly, good seeing you again. Here we are, we're talking again, another day's strike. Do you feel you're achieving anything? Do you feel you're getting anywhere?
No, I don't, to be honest. I just feel like the government aren't coming to the table. They're not even prepared to listen to what we're saying. It's a really, really sad situation. You know, the government clapped for us, now act for us. It's really hard when you come into a profession to care for people and you're not able to do that on a daily basis. There's not enough staff. There's 40,000 nursing vacancies at the moment, and we can't attract new talent into the job because when they go to university, it was college when I started, but it's now you have to train up to university level, a degree. So they're getting into debt. They coming into work and then starting off on a salary of £24,000 with university debt, paying national insurance, tax, car parking fee, the NMC fee to be a nurse. They're not left with much and putting up with the stressful situations that we're all in.
I mean, I'm interested when you're talking about the university process, and I think when we spoke to you the last time nurses were out on strike, you mentioned this, and we had emails from viewers saying, why has it become necessary for nurses to get degrees? I mean, do you think it is necessary in this day and age?
I think it was so that we were seen as professional. They are putting more and more on us. Now you're expected to read ECGs. You're basically doing the job of a junior doctor now as a qualified nurse. So they have put more and more onto us. When I first started, I was the very first Project 2000 back in 1997. I qualified and I was trained up to diploma level. It is a debate, I suppose. When I trained, I got on a bursary, so I didn't actually pay for my diploma. It was funded. Now nurses are having to pay for their own degrees, so they're already coming into a profession that's low paid, in debt.
Listening to you talking, Kelly, it sounds to me as if you're predicting a problem ahead, a bigger problem ahead. There's a problem now, but it sounds as if the NHS or the government in general is just storing up a big problem in terms of recruitment, in terms of support, and in terms of what they're going to have to pay their nurses for the way they are qualified.
It's massive, massive. We've got 40,000 qualified nurse vacancies at the moment. How do we fill them? If we had those 40,000 nurses, we could open more beds. We could stop the queuing in A&E. You know, people waiting 36 hours on a trolley. How can you deliver care to a person on a trolley in a corridor? You can't. You just can't do it. And I think it's short-sighted to think that they don't need to act and they don't need to do something now to help us recruit nurses into the profession.
It's such a dilemma, isn't it? Because I'm pretty sure most people would agree and have sympathy with nurses, because we all, at some point, time or other, will need you, won't we? And what you do is an incredible thing. And yet, the fact that over the weekend, for the first time, we've now heard the Labour Party, Jonathan Ashworth, coming out saying there's no way we could meet the nurses' pay demands. There's no way we could go above 10%. Does that not say, and I know politics isn't what you've come into the world to do, but, does that not tell you that we're in an unprecedented circumstance where there just isn't the cash that is needed?
As far as I'm aware, they haven't offered us a pay deal at the moment. They haven't even come to the table to offer. I'm sure if it was put to members, would they accept 10%? I'm sure it will be put to the vote, and maybe nurses would accept that. The last pay rise that they gave me, in layman's terms, to put it to you, I am able to buy one extra loaf of bread a week for my family. That is what that pay rise that government gave to me.
So the cost of... Yeah, where do we go from here? I mean, what will today achieve? Anything?
I'm hoping that the government will make an offer. They've made an offer in Wales. Scotland are negotiating, but our government just don't seem to want to come and sit down and discuss it and talk. I think they're just hoping that eventually we'll go away. And I don't think we can now. I think we've come to this point. I never in my 25 years of being a qualified nurse thought I would be going to a picket line this morning. But we need to do something. There's going to be no NHS left, no NHS. And then what do we do? If you're not rich and you can't afford private healthcare, what do you do for health? There's going to be a massive divide. And the thing is, people using private hospitals, if anything goes wrong, they've still got to blue light you to an A&E that's NHS. There's no private A&E services. There's no private intensive cares. Is still using the NHS.
You're listening to ICU nurse Kelly Hopkins, and she is a nurse at Liverpool Foundation Trust, and she will be on the picket line today. Once again, good talking to you, Kelly. Thanks for outlining the argument so clearly.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much indeed. You've got a view. You know what to do. Get in touch.
Now, Business Secretary Grant Shapps has said that Liz Truss's approach towards the economy clearly wasn't correct after the former Prime Minister said she was never given a realistic chance to enact tax cuts. Meanwhile, allies of Rishi Sunak branded her delusional and warned that further interventions will cost the Conservatives the next election. Well, joining us now is former campaign manager to Jeremy Hunt, Rory Welsh. Very good morning to you, Rory. I suppose the fact that we've got Boris Johnson out on manoeuvres and now Liz Truss on the front page of the huge broadsheet for the second day in a row really speaks to the problems within the Conservative Party. And as we were saying there, it almost is a sign that they think they're not going to win the next election.
What it certainly signals is that there is a gap on the right of the party, and it's seen that Sunak has gone for this largely centrist line, which is reinforced by the fact that he has a largely centrist chancellor in Jeremy Hunt. And there seems to be a perceived appeal from Conservative MPs that there is a vacuum on the right. And I think you're absolutely right in identifying the two people that are trying to fill that. And Liz Truss trying to rehabilitate her image is an attempt to be able to fill that perceived void. But
the audience she's playing to, how big is that void on the right? I mean, who does it constitute? Is it powerful enough to make any difference, or is Sunak playing it right?
I think that you need to think about it in terms of red wall versus blue wall. Mm-hmm. And the red wall is going to constitute a lot of what supports that perceived support on the right. However, the reality looks to be now that a lot of them aren't going to have their seats. So a right government would be well observed to look at those blue wall seats and focus on that. And perhaps there are a lot of outspoken supporters on the right, but perhaps the strength isn't as much as the headlines might suggest.
And essentially, she's just saying, look, we need to go for tax cuts. I mean, is she right to say that? I think pretty much every Conservative would be in favour of tax cuts, but it's all about the timing. Is she right that we need to do it now?
It is a very difficult thing to pose tax cuts in this. I talked last week about how an inflation cut needs to come before a tax cut. Every Conservative at their core wants to cut tax, but that does not mean that it should get necessarily. It's a wise idea to railroad it through any available opportunity. And indeed, it's perceived by many in the party that her unwillingness to be pragmatic about that is what caused the inevitable downfall. Grant Shapps, as you mentioned, being one of those.
So what's she trying to do? I mean, is she delusional as she's being painted, or is she, again, trying to look for a comeback?
I think it would certainly seem that she is looking to make a comeback, and she's taking a broadly two-pronged approach to this, which is she's trying to rehabilitate what she's already done, her famously short term in office. And the other interesting thing she's doing is trying to position herself on foreign policy. And these past few days, she's been talking quite a lot about China. Back in December, she met US Republicans, and she's used this China spy balloon issue as well as the Taiwan issue to position herself in this realm, which she's never really spoken a great deal about, or at least not at the forefront, and so maybe is using that as a slight comms diversion tactic.
Yeah, it's interesting because she's supposed to be doing this speech, isn't she, saying that we need to take China seriously. And yeah, Grant Shapps, who's actually in the cabinet, was talking about how he agreed with what America did, shooting down that spy balloon from China yesterday. And is she not sort of teaching the government how to suck eggs on foreign policy here?
Well, I think you need to always delve into the claim of what it means to be soft and hard on China. It is a very popular line, and I'm sure if you would find the polling on it, it would suggest that most people would say we need to take a hard line on China. But what does that actually boil down to mean? Do we want to take some sort of military action? No, there's no appetite for that. Do we want to do economic sanctions? Raise the question, are we in a position to do that? Where do we fall within the US line on it? Because inevitably, probably, the US has to be the world leader on it. And her meeting with the party that's not in power is an interesting move in America, is an interesting move in that regard. So until it's meted out specifically what she means to be harder on China, I think perhaps it's better to wait on that one.
Rory, what about her timing in all of this? Why now? Why has she waited until now?
I think if you're a pollster, you would look at Rishi Sunak's approval numbers, and perhaps she sees, and I can't speak to her motivations, but it will be seen by some of the Conservative MPs that she's picking a moment to take over the reins again, which there's a pretty low appetite for another change of leadership in the Conservative Party. But Rishi Sunak's approval rating is pretty low at the moment, and perhaps it's seen as a last gasp before the next election.
OK. Yeah. Rory Welch, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. The time is 18 minutes past 6. It's a Monday morning. This is Breakfast on GB News. Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. The head of Epsom College has been found dead alongside her husband and her 7-year-old daughter. The bodies of Emma Pattinson, her daughter Letty and her husband George were found at the prestigious boarding school in the early hours of yesterday morning. Surrey police are investigating but say they're confident it's an isolated incident with no third-party involvement.
A former Metropolitan Police officer, one of Britain's most prolific sex offenders, is due to be sentenced at Southwark Crown Court today. David Carrick admitted to 24 counts of rape, charges of sexual assault, controlling and coercive behaviour and false imprisonment over an 18-year-long period while he served as a police officer.
A magnitude 7.9 earthquake shook both Turkey and Syria early this morning, leaving at least 76 people dead and more than 100 in Syria. Buildings have collapsed in the area that's been hit, and people are searching through the rubble for survivors. It's cold outside. Lots of people thinking, oh, it's Monday morning. It's come around ever so quickly. I'm just going to pull a sickie today. Have you ever done that? Apparently, it's the biggest day of the year for that. Mm-hmm. You went into a sickie? Pulling a sickie?
Not really. I just find being self-employed.
Like being at work?
Well, I don't. Well, yes, I love being at work. Actually, love being at work. But I do think you either have a work ethic or you don't have a work ethic. And also, I'm not a drinker, so I don't wake up with hangovers.
Do you think people who pull sickies are drinkers?
I think quite often. They are as well. But look, you've either got that attitude, you've got a work ethic, or you don't have a work ethic and you're easily put off. Some people have a very weak constitution. There's lots of things wrong with them. But basically, it's actually got to a stage where employers are looking at it and saying it's going to happen anyway. So we might as well say you get 1 a year or 2 a year, whatever, so choose them wisely.
So let us know if that is you, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or if Twitter is your thing, you can send us your thoughts via @GBN.
Yeah.
GBNews.
Whether they should be legitimised, sickies should be legitimised, whether we should be harder on them, and maybe you're an employer.
Get to work.
Yeah, let us know your views. 6:20, images of Nicola Bulley on the day of her disappearance have been shared by her friends. We've got doorbell footage now showing the mother of two loading up her car just before doing the school run and going on that fateful riverside walk.
Well, the search continues for the 45-year-old who was last seen in the River Wye in Lancashire, and our national reporter Theo Jacumba has all the latest.
This is Nicola leaving home on the day she disappeared. She can be seen getting ready to set off on a school run, putting her dog Willow in the boot. On the ground and in the air, officers alongside specialists from a number of agencies have been looking for clues in their search for the missing mother of two. Community members, including those who don't know her, are joining her friends in solidarity.
Over the last couple of days alone, we've had people from the Lake District, from Manchester, from Stoke-on-Trent. People have been travelling in from all over to help us with the search. Nikki is just such an integral part of our community, of our friendship circles. So we can't stop until we have some evidence that points to what has happened.
Efforts have ramped up here. This is a large sign which can be seen in the centre of St Michael's on Wyre, alongside many signs across the village. There have been questions among friends and family about the legitimacy of the police's working hypothesis, which is that Nicola fell in the river. Extensive searches have been carried out here in St Michael's on Wyre and surrounding towns and villages over the last week or so since the disappearance of the mother of two, Nicola Bulley. The police say they are working extremely hard every day alongside many agencies. They say this road in particular, which is known as Garstang Road or Blackpool Road, is a particularly key area as many cars pass through here and may have some crucial evidence on dashcam footage. According to a forensic specialist, at this time of the year, a body will normally resurface between 6 to 8 days as the body decomposes.
It bloats and the body comes to the surface. It's normally found by dog walkers if they're not found. And that's what I'm surprised about. And it's just they're doing a great job of searching, and that's the police divers. But I'm just wondering why. I mean, we've offered our equipment up there and our expertise, if required, to the family. And if they want it, we could search this river in a day and say Nicola's there or she's not. It's as simple as that. While the search continues here, police are also searching beyond the village as they look for vital information, which they say will help to assist their investigation. Theo Jacumba, GB News.
So there's a specialist search team being launched today with all sorts of sonar devices which can pick out basically pebbles at the bottom of the river. And it's just such a mystery, so awful for everybody concerned in this one as to what actually happened to Nicola, or where is she? Right, we're going to be talking about apprenticeships right after the break, and we've got the weather for you now on this Monday morning.
Hello, very good morning to you. Clear skies overnight across much of England and Wales means there's some frost and fog around to start, but then we'll have sunny spells, whilst in the north it's looking cloudier with some drizzly rain. The reason for the settled weather across much of the UK is this area of high pressure, but that's going to clear away towards the east, and then this weather front waiting out in the west is going to arrive as we go later on in the day. Through this morning there is some fog to watch out for, particularly across parts of the east and southeast of England, but that should clear as we go through the morning, and so the things will be largely bright bright for a time, but we are going to see the cloud in the northwest spreading somewhat, so many places turning cloudier through the day. The thickest cloud across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland with some outbreaks of drizzly rain, but because of the southerly flow that we have, I am expecting some brighter breaks to develop across northern parts of Scotland, and here that's where temperatures are going to be highest, could get into double figures. As we go through the end of the day, that front that I mentioned earlier is going to push its way in from the northwest. So a spell of rain reaching into northwest Scotland and then later into Northern Ireland, gradually making its way southeastwards overnight. Ahead of this, across parts of England and Wales, again, we're going to have largely clear skies, which means temperatures are going to plummet. Could get as low as -4, -5 Celsius, so a widespread and at times harsh frost, and once more likely to see some fog and freezing fog developing, which could cause some problems through Tuesday morning's rush hour. As we go through Tuesday itself, though, that front is gradually going to make its way southwards. It is going to bring some rain, but it's weakening and breaking up as it goes, so many places staying largely dry. Some bright sunny spells developing to the north of this and staying largely sunny towards the south, though notice temperatures a bit disappointing, a bit below average for the time of year, milder further north. There will be some further changeable weather to come as we go through this week, and after a dry start in the south, I am expecting a little bit of rain by the end of the week even here, and with that, temperatures probably picking up, so a chilly start but turning somewhat milder. See you later.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Creeping up to 6:30. A very good morning to you. Still to come on GB Breakfast this morning.
Just before 7 o'clock this morning, we'll be speaking to Health Minister and also a nurse, Maria Caulfield, on the biggest strike in the NHS's history today.
And were you satisfied with the big finale of Happy Valley last night? We'll be dissecting the ending of the hit series because it is the end, the finality of it all. Just before 8 o'clock this morning, your views as to how it ended. I thought it was a bit rushed at the end. I thought there was lots of things I would have liked to have visually seen. We were told how certain storylines came to conclusion, but we didn't see them coming to a conclusion. And I think I'm going to miss it very badly on a Sunday evening. You haven't watched it yet?
I haven't watched it, no. I don't do the sitting down at a set time on a set week. I'll just binge it when I've got.
Yeah.
If I'm behind.
Yeah.
I'm behind.
So anyway, we're going to be talking about that before 8 o'clock this morning.
OK, we're talking about careers now, because, of course, deciding what you want to do for a living can be hugely daunting, and many young people just feel confused and perhaps even disenchanted with the thought of higher education and even more student debt.
I think people need guided, they need directionalised, they need given ideas. And you say, I never thought of that. That sounds good. Apprenticeships on offer, we're going to talk about now, and they offer an alternative where you can learn on a job, actually learning about the job, making money as well. And today marks the beginning of National Apprenticeship Week.
And we are joined by an apprentice, Hazel McGrath, and Dr. Jacqueline Hall, who is Head of Apprenticeships and Skills at BAE Systems, one of the country's biggest weapons company. Good morning to you. Wow, this is fantastic. Hazel, tell us a little bit about what made you decide to become an apprentice rather than go to university.
So during school, I kind of grew up with education all around me, but I prefer a more hands-on approach and actually gaining experience whilst also learning. And I felt that if I went to college or university, I wouldn't have got that same opportunity and experience.
So what experience are you getting? Where are you being steered towards? What area is, Dr. Hall and the company BAE, what are they grooming you for, as it were?
I think at BAE, it's about making sure that we have the right skills both now and in the future. And apprenticeships offer a really special and unique experience. As you say, it's about learning on the job. It's learning about specialist skills, but also giving people a really good start in life. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter if you're leaving school this year, or even if you want a career change, because apprenticeships are actually open to everyone. So what we do at BAE Systems, we really believe that we need to support young people in their education, and that really is supporting children from primary school through secondary school as they're making different choices about their subjects, let alone their career. And most importantly, it's good to do something, a job that really interests you, because we spend a lot of time at work. So we want to do something that's exciting and purposeful, but also feel that, we're making a difference.
Hazel, I'm interested. I can totally understand the desire to earn while you learn, especially as more and more people describe degrees as possibly the most expensive bender you'll ever go on. 3 years of partying and debt without necessarily a great qualification at the end of it. But do you worry that an apprenticeship could perhaps limit your opportunities, focus you in one particular direction, or perhaps does it give you a limit to how far you can progress within the industry?
So personally, I feel that when going on an apprenticeship and gaining that on-hand experience, you're already getting a taste for the workplace and your career path and what your likes and dislikes are, especially within my apprenticeship. They offer different placements in different parts of the business, so you have a full range of motion and that you really find out what you like.
Yeah, but Jacqueline, listening to you and the whole intention of all of this, forgive the pun, but it's hardly rocket science, isn't it? Everybody wins. BAE Systems win, the employee wins about this, the government wins because we've got a trained workforce about this. So why is this week then so important, do you think?
Well, at BAE, we talk to young people every day of the year. But I think in National Apprenticeship Week, it's all employers coming together to sort of, if you like, amplify that message a little bit more. And it's about celebrating the opportunities that are out there for young people. Last year, we recruited a record over 1,000 apprentices into the business. They're almost part of our DNA. And this year, we're recruiting a further 1,400 apprentices ready to start in September 23. So our message is that, if you're having your cornflakes this morning and thinking about your future, take a look at the website or have a look at the government website, Google BAE and apprenticeships, and look at the stories of people who are just like you. They might be a bit shy, a little bit anxious, worried about what's going to come next. Take a look and you'll see that those people have become the apprentices of tomorrow. In fact, only this week we're about to celebrate our apprentices who are at the end of that journey. And as Hazel described, moving on to the next stage in their career. There's everything to gain and you've got nothing to lose. It's just worth having a look.
Well, you enjoy the journey, Hazel. We hope you go on to be whatever you want to be, and you've got lots of good ideas from your apprenticeship at BAE. Thank you. Lovely talking to you. Good luck to you. And Dr. Hall, thank you very much indeed. Dr. Jacqueline Hall's the head of Apprenticeships and Skills at BAE Systems. Thank you both very much indeed. I think there's a lot for other big employers to learn from that. The NHS, for instance, you know, teaching.
Well, that's what I was trying to say about nursing as well. You know,
yes, yeah.
Do you really need 3 years of studying to become a really hands-on, fantastic nurse? Let us know your thoughts. Stay with us, though. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going through the papers this morning. We're joined by Dawn Neeson and Sean McDonald. See you in a sec. He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Look at the time, doesn't it fly? 6:37.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of, well, in fact, the front pages of the newspapers, starting with the Mail. It's revealing the Health Service spends £400,000 a day on private ambulances and taxis for patients. They've done a huge number of FOIs, and we'll get into those a little bit later on.
Yeah, well, that's not because they're just sort of squandering money. That's because they haven't got their own ambulances and transport systems. All these headlines seem more shocking than they actually are. Oh, they spend this on agency nurses. Well, because you won't pay pensions and holidays for staff nurses, that's why. Let's go to the Mirror.
Here's the Mirror. It's leading with the missing mum, Nicola Bulley. Images taken by a doorbell camera at home are released. That was just 1 hour before she vanished.
The Times. It goes with delusional Truss, who they say will cost votes as the Prime Minister's allies hit out, as the former Prime Minister plots a return, would you believe?
And the Star say the beast from the east will return, which will leave Britain colder than the Arctic. I'm surprised there wasn't a lettuce on the front there. Let's go to the former editor of the Star, Dawn. No, I just thought if Liz Truss is making a comeback, we might see the lettuce making a comeback as well.
I think you might. It's been in the freezer. So
it's been in the
link between lettuce and
I see what you did.
What about Liz Truss? What's she playing at?
Golly gosh. Well, let's go for the front page of the Times, shall we? Delusional Truss will cost votes Tories. True. I mean, she gave a 4,000-word interview yesterday to another newspaper, and she was only in power for 49 days. That meant she managed to get 81 words for every single day she was in power. She is actually saying that she wasn't given a realistic chance as Prime Minister to implement her economic plan, you know, the one that caused all the trouble we're currently in. And she feels like she was sabotaged. And she's openly criticised Rishi Sunak's work as Chancellor, saying that the corporation tax increase is going to destroy the economy and putting people off investing. in the, you know what, can we just stop arguing? On both sides, the political parties they're just tearing each other apart, aren't they? And all I think voters want is just a political party just to be serious politicians and get us out of the mess we're in, rather than this infighting, childish squabbling.
Sean, tell us what you want, what you really, really want.
I think if I said what I really want, I'll get us taken off the air. I'll get us all in trouble. I think it depends, Don. I get what you're saying. You want people want politicians to just kind of get on with work and get things done. I think it depends which colour your tie is. I think Labour supporters will be delighted to see this continuation of, it's like a sort of internal obliteration, throwing themselves into this chasm of absolute chaos, and I mean, I welcome it. I like to see it. I do have to admire Liz Truss's, I don't know what you'd call it, how bold she's been, and the fact that she's criticising anybody after the absolute...
Her unembarrassability.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I could be doing with that, especially the day after a heavy night out or something, when I'm kind of reflecting on my bad behaviour. I'll think, if Liz Truss is, not bad behaviour, but let's just say, thinking of maybe been upsetting a few people with a few drinks on me. But in all seriousness, I think the fact that she's completely unembarrassable, you could not paint a red neck on her.
Don't you need that? You need a really thick skin to be in politics. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
and the thing I find, Sean, is like, you know, this isn't even a political point. The Labour Party aren't exactly unified either, are they? I mean, it's sort of like, you know, Keir Starmer trying to be as centrist as possible, with the left hissing and saying that's wrong. And it's so both parties, I feel as a voter, are completely tearing themselves apart internally. I just want them to sort the NHS out, to be honest
I
with
wonder if there is an argument to be made for when a Prime Minister leaves office that actually they should leave the party, or at least frontline politics. It wouldn't happen in a big organisation, would it? If your CEO goes,
absolutely.
you don't then have not just one, but three former CEOs in the company all chipping in with their advice. You can't function like that, surely. No. So maybe that needs to change.
Let's talk, Sean, about the awful situation of Nicola Bulley, missing now since over 10 days now, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely horrendous. Her friends have released CCTV footage just before her disappearance. The story is a very multifaceted one. Some of the things that I've picked up on, the police are talking about crackpot theories that are adding to the distress of our loved ones. You know, people turning up and clairvoyants and psychics and people basically for their own interests. So they've been told they're not welcome. It's just, I mean, first and foremost, a horrendous situation, a horrendous story, completely incomprehensible what these people must be going through. The police have pretty much said that they think she's fallen into the river. We've got a former detective, Martin Underhill, and he said he's very concerned by that, because he said if it was an attack, it could have taken place in seconds. There's a lot of things that don't add up, and the police are boxing themselves into a corner with their theory, because, you know, I read or I saw that, she's fallen in, and I didn't switch off to the story, but I thought, OK, that's it, concluded. People could maybe...
I think it's very curious that the family have actually issued their own statement saying the police have no evidence, and it's very rare for a family to do that.
Yeah.
And there is no evidence, and that's the thing. And Nicola, thankfully, is on most of the front pages today, because it's so important that, you know, everybody does their bit to try and find out what happened and reunite with her two little girls.
I do think the police could have done more to keep the public informed of what they were up to, because I think where there is a vacuum of information, people do speculate. I mean, just amongst friends, everyone's been saying to me, what do you think happened? Lots of people say, do you think it was her partner? Terrible speculation, but statistically, most people end up being hurt by the partner. If they had come out like a family member did over the weekend, or I think a friend, with these bullet points of detail saying, actually, he works from home, the CCTV, he's been ruled out. Why didn't the police just say that? Because it then, you know, it doesn't fill that vacuum with speculation and people sort of casting aspersions, which are also hugely hurtful to the family. So I think there will be questions about the way the police...
Absolutely. I mean, I think the police have really dropped the ball in this one. Yeah, awful.
Don, another NHS strike today. This is front page of the Telegraph.
It's funny, because Sean and I were sitting before we came on, it's like trying to find a headline and then the word crisis. It's not easy. Obviously, this is the NHS strike today, and this is an interview with our General Sir Gordon Messenger, who is a former General of the Marines, led the invasion of Iraq. He's reviewing leadership of the health service at the moment and suggests that there are supermarkets and banks that are run better. I've had bars that have been run better than this, to be honest with you. And he's suggesting that basically, yes, obviously, it does need more money, it does need more staff, but the organisation also needs reorganising so that people are motivated, that they want to, really want to work for the NHS. They have pride in their job. And, there is so, when you've got managers, I know this is an old cliche now, but when you've got managers on £200,000 who are quite clearly not doing a very good job, and we're struggling to pay nurses and junior doctors, and we still have nurses paying their parking fees. I mean, it's just insane the way it is run. So basically saying it needs an overhaul. We need to look at the whole thing. You can't just throw money at it and hope the problem will go away, because it won't.
And The Guardian is saying that we need to look at the way police officers are enrolled into various forces, Sean.
Yeah, the Inspector of Constabulary, Matt Parr, he's outlined a few issues, one being a real problem with misogyny. He said that most, if not all, serving female police officers had to endure sexual assault or inappropriate behaviour from fellow officers, which is horrendous. That's an internal thing. In terms of police officers coming into the ranks, there are police officers with convictions and close links to criminals, among hundreds that have been recruited since 2020. It's just, come on. If anybody's going to be doing their due diligence, is it not the police?
What sort of vetting process are they doing? People with criminal records. You try applying for a job in any public authority, and you've got a criminal record. They go into it with a fine-tooth comb, but the police are getting away with it.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to go to the break. More from Don and Sean after that, including Prince Harry's romps in a field.
Oh, come on, we all need a giggle. I think this is great antidote to all the crises left, right and centre.
And we've got the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield, to come right after this. Don't go away.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 12 minutes to 7. We are continuing to go through the papers, still joined by the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn, and the broadcaster, Dawn Neeson, I should say.
It's fine.
The broadcaster,
fine.
first name terms, and the broadcaster and podcast host, Sean McDonald.
And over the front of the papers is a woman who wasn't expecting to be there, and her name's Sasha Walpole, who's a couple of years older than Prince Harry. He described losing his virginity to an older woman. I mean, there's hardly much in it, is there? But she, well, what do you make, Dawn, of what you're saying?
I couldn't repeat it live on air, but it was 6 pages in the Sun on Sunday yesterday. I think the Mail on Sunday did similar, so that's 12 pages altogether. And we have 2 pages on the front page on the Sun today, the same story. This is Sasha Walpole. She was a groom at the time. She was 18 or 19, it's a bit vague, and Harry was 16 or 17. They went and had a 5-minute, basically a teenage fumble in a field, right? And Harry, in his book, just described this like Jilly Cooper writing an entire book on the subject. Harry romped with an older woman and she slapped him on the rump and sort of like, you know, it was really, really overdone, wasn't it? And it was a teenage fumble with someone else that was roughly the same age as you, give or take 18 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And because Harry wrote this in his book, didn't name her, so Sasha now has come out and given her side of the story.
Yeah.
A 5-minute romp.
And it's ruled a lot of other people out of the runners and riders, as it were, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised. So she wasn't named, is that right? You're saying she wasn't named in the book?
In Harry's book. No.
So yeah, that's a perfect way to keep it sort of
quiet,
secret, isn't it? To go and speak to the Sun, and you know that's a good way to be discreet.
My dad knows about it. She says on the front page of the book.
As she jets off somewhere.
Having to tell your dad. Do you think? I wonder what a father's reaction to that is. I mean, obviously mortified, but
I think he would have been royally unimpressed.
There you go. Very good. Very good. Right. We're going to say goodbye then to Dawn and to Sean for now, because we have Maria Caulfield standing by, Health Minister, and indeed still practising nurse. Good morning to you, Minister.
Good morning.
So today, biggest day of strikes in the NHS's 75-year history. What are your thoughts on that this morning?
Well, we're obviously very disappointed that the strike action is going ahead, but to reassure patients in England, where we're responsible for healthcare, it is less than half of the NHS Trust for the nursing strike. So for most patients, they'll be unaffected if they've got appointments and procedures today. But obviously we also have the ambulance strikes on top of that, which will also add pressures to NHS services today.
So do you believe that lives will be at risk today?
Well, I think it's going to be very difficult. Obviously, we've put in as much preparation as possible, working with NHS Truss, again, to minimise disruption to patients and to make sure that for urgent and emergency care that there are backup services in place. But obviously, any time that there's disruption to NHS services, it does have an impact on patients, particularly with ongoing strikes.
So, Maria, you are a nurse yourself. You must have a lot of sympathy, though, surely, with fellow nurses who are staying away from work today.
Absolutely, I'm an RCN member myself as well, so I, sit in both camps, if you like. But and I've been as a backbench MP always working with the RCN when we had under the Liberal Democrat coalition government the pay cap and pay freeze, and I worked with the RCN on that, and also to reintroduce bursaries and to introduce nurse apprenticeships, which we are doing now. So absolutely, I have a lot of sympathy, but we also have a responsibility to the taxpayer, and we followed an independent process with a pay review body that the union signed up to, and we're very happy with the settlement last year. And it's difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. We just can't afford inflation-busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
Not like we're talking about railway drivers here. The public support is huge for nurses, for teachers, and I think if you're talking about being the custodians of the public purse, and yet the public actually understand why they are asking for what they're asking.
Well, absolutely, but my disappointment, I guess, with the RCN this morning is that in Scotland they've called off the strikes because they're prepared to talk about this year's pay rise, which starts from April. We are in exactly the same boat. We are very happy, and the Secretary of State has been discussing this year's pay award and working conditions with them, but they've called off the strikes in Scotland but not in England. So my plea to the RCN is we're very happy to discuss this year's pay award, and we'd really value them calling off the strikes and getting back round the table.
Today is the start of National Apprenticeship Week, and we were talking to an employer and an apprentice 20 minutes ago on the programme, and we started to reflect on how more is being asked of nurses, that they're playing the role of junior doctors, really. They have to have a university qualification. They've got to be educated to university standard. Is that really necessary when surely learning on the job, being paid on the job, being an apprentice would be good enough?
Well, I'm really pleased that you brought that up, because we've introduced nurse apprenticeships for a while now. So most trusts across England are offering student nurses apprenticeships, so you earn and learn on the job. And as you say, that's how I did it. You know, I'm old enough that I did it through the old-fashioned way, and it does. You know, you do learn a lot, but you do need a degree. I just want to put that point out there, because if you are doing nurse prescribing, if you are doing things that junior doctors used to do, you do need that education and training. But you can do it through a degree nurse apprenticeship. So anyone who's thinking of nursing, please do look out for those, because we're expanding them as quickly as we can, and they're extremely popular.
Talking of learning on the job, I want to talk to you about Liz Truss. She's been complaining in the national newspapers that she wasn't given a realistic chance of seeing her policies through, although obviously the consequences of them on mortgages, on pensions and markets was clear for all to be seen. But she's unrepentant, thinks she should have been allowed to continue the course. What is your view?
Well, I think, you know, as Grant Shapps said yesterday, I think as Conservatives, we're all wanting to see people keep more of the money they earn through low taxation. And if you look, when we first came into government back in 2010, we've raised the tax threshold. It was around £6,000. Now you have to be earning over £12,500 before you pay tax. The same with national insurance. So where we can cut tax, we will. But the biggest enemy to every household at the moment is inflation. And whether you get a 5% pay rise or a 10% pay rise, that's completely swallowed up at the moment by inflation. And inflation-busting pay rises will not fix that. So we have to get inflation down. It's one of the PM's top priorities to halve that, just as Margaret Thatcher did when she came into government. And once we get inflation down, we can absolutely look at reducing tax further.
But I suppose one of the biggest enemies for the Prime Minister will be his predecessors trying to interrupt his course, his policies, and it shows weakness, does it not, that he's being exposed and criticised from within his own party?
Well, I think that's life in politics. We're a very broad church in the Conservative Party. We welcome all points of views. I think, you know, Liz Truss has set out the reasons why she introduced things like the mini budget, and that's absolutely fine. You know, we have previous Prime Ministers Gordon Brown and Tony Blair chipping in all the time as well. So that's just part of political life, and I wouldn't want to silence anyone from sharing their views or experience. And very often you can learn from those. But I think the Prime Minister now is very focused. He's set out his 5-point plan for growing the economy, halving inflation, stopping the small boats and dealing with the NHS. They're his key priorities, and he's getting on with the job.
And just finally, on the issue of the small boats, do you think it's right that the UK could be seen to be pulling out of the European Convention on Human Rights and the likes of Belarus and Russia? Somebody like Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave over that, wouldn't he?
Well, I think the Prime Minister is planning to introduce legislation after recess, which will mean that if you come here illegally, you won't be able to return. We're fairly confident that will be upheld by the British courts, and that's the plan. I think the Prime Minister is not leaving anything, he's not excluding any course of action, but at the moment the focus is on passing that legislation, which we fully expect the British courts will uphold.
Maria Caulfield, we will leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Maria Caulfield is a health minister. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, you're having your say about all of this today on the NHS strikes. Con, good morning. You have so many young kids leaving school that would love to follow their parents into an NHS job. They can't because they haven't got a degree.
Jane says, sorry, guys, I have no sympathy with the nurses. Their overall package is excellent. Good pay, brilliant pension.
Well, if you say so, Jane, I don't know, I can't verify that. Jeff says, why doesn't the government pay off the nurses' uni debt? At least give them a fighting chance. How can they survive in London on those wages? You see, that's a very, very good point. And, you know, people who, we're talking about apprenticeships or indentures, and I don't know why there's not more of that sort of thing.
Well, I suppose because, you know, government paying for things, government doesn't have its own money, it's our money, it involves...
But it doesn't have its own dentists, it doesn't have its own nurses, it doesn't have its own doctors, it's loads of people it doesn't... But yet it'll pay them for RAF pilots, for instance. So it was just an interesting thing.
Yes.
Phil says, I sympathise with what the nurses and other NHS staff are trying to get, but I can't see how this can be funded. I think that the overall NHS model needs to be radically overhauled, or otherwise what we have will be unaffordable, or we have to pay more tax to fund it. Now, sickies, Isabel, we're talking about this as well. I'm not sure why we're talking about sickies.
Well, it's National Sickie Day. It's apparently the day when people are likely to take a sickie, which is after the
Why didn't we think of that?
packet of the year, because obviously we had 5 weeks to make that pay packet from the end of December stretch, and so lots of people have been out on big weekends and are feeling like Monday mornings come round and they're just not having any of it.
Well, I wish you had told me that last night, and then I could have
enjoyed Happy Valley.
Eamonn's not in today, so he's not a...
Yeah.
Sure.
So we've been asking you, have you ever taken a sickie? Ian says, I've never taken a sickie. Do you take sickies? What happens when you're really sick? My thoughts entirely.
Yeah. I hate those who go sick just for the sake of it, says John. Della says many people treat paid sick leave as part of their annual holiday allowance. It's very, very true. And they always get it in each year, yeah.
And Desmond says, no, but I've had a member of company HR spy on me to see if I was at home.
Quite
tell
right.
us more, Desmond.
Quite right. Right, we've got more news. The top of the hour, the time is fast approaching 7 o'clock. You're tuned in to GB News at breakfast.
The biggest round of NHS walkouts in history starts today.
7 o'clock on the dot. A very good morning to you. Monday, the 6th of February. Breakfast in GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance workers in England and Wales will go on strike today. NHS leaders have called this the biggest round of industrial action in its history.
Here's what
It's difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. You know, we just can't afford inflation-busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
Health Minister Maria Caulfield there. Liz Truss continues a comeback campaign, apparently. She's been called delusional after speaking out for the first time since being ousted as Prime Minister, arguing she wasn't given a realistic chance to implement her fiscal plans.
In other news, a special diving team will use helicopter and sonar technology to assist in the search for Nicola Bulley. This comes as new CCTV footage has been released showing her movements about an hour before she disappeared.
And National Sickie Day today. It's like as if it's a statutory requirement. But today, the first Monday in February, is when most of you will call in sick to work. So if you're thinking about it, there's your justification. We'll be asking if it's okay to skive off work occasionally.
I feel as though we're giving people ideas.
That's
it's that
it.
time of the day, isn't it? It's lots of people will be heading out the door. Don't do it.
Or they're getting up and saying,
Get in
can I
there.
be bothered going into the shower? Or will I just lie in bed and watch Eamonn and Isabel?
Well, yeah, there's always that. You can take us with you, actually. There's no excuse. Take us with you on the app or on the phone, on the radio, whatever it might be. And let us know your thoughts as well. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at GBnews.
The biggest day of strikes in NHS history begins this morning as nurses in England, some in Wales, will stage a 12-hour strike over pay and condition. Alongside nurses, many ambulance workers will take industrial action as well.
Patients could again face disruption to operations and appointments, though nurses are continuing to provide emergency care.
We've just spoken to the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield. This is what she had to say.
I think it's going to be very difficult. Obviously, we've put in as much preparation as possible, working with NHS Truss, again to minimise disruption to patients and to make sure that for urgent and emergency care that there are backup services in place. But obviously, any time that there's disruption to NHS services, it does have an impact on patients, particularly with ongoing strikes. Absolutely, I have a lot of sympathy, but we also have a responsibility to the taxpayer. And, you know, we followed an independent process with a pay review body that the union signed up to, and we're very happy with the settlement last year. And it's difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. You know, we just can't afford inflation-busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
So that was the government speaking to us just a few moments ago. Meanwhile, our national reporter Ellie Costello takes a wider look at the whole issue.
Enough is enough! It's the first time that nurses and ambulance staff have joined the picket line together. It's poised to be the biggest strike in NHS history. So, who's involved? While continuing its series of strikes, the Royal College of Nursing expects more than 30,000 nurses to walk out across 73 NHS trusts in England. Previous action involved up to 55 trusts. The GMB union believes more than 10,000 ambulance workers will also take part in strikes across 7 regions in England and Wales. And the Unite union is preparing for around 2,600 of its members to walk off the job in 4 English regions and in Wales. All 3 unions are demanding better pay and conditions. They blame the government for underfunding the NHS and its staff for years.
And I've never been more concerned about patient safety, and nor have my colleagues. Patients are not getting the treatment they deserve, and we are not able to deliver the care that we've signed up to give them. All around, all we want is a better deal, not for just the staff, but for the patients. They deserve so much better.
It just can't continue. It's too heartbreaking. It's a job that I love, but I need to pay my bills, and we need to keep people in the profession. Nursing students don't want to be nurses. Experienced nurses are leaving. There will be no one left. And I don't blame them, but I can't imagine doing anything else.
The strike will cause disruption. Thousands of operations and appointments face being cancelled, and a bank holiday-style service is expected in many areas. 62-year-old Gary Coogan has been waiting for triple bypass surgery for nearly 2 years.
It feels like all the institutions you've paid into, when it comes around to you needing them, they let you down for their own reasons, but I'm not the one that's put any of these institutions into these situations.
When do we get it? Now! How do we get it? Strike! The Royal College of Nursing has agreed to staff chemotherapy centres, emergency cancer services, dialysis, critical care units, neonatal and paediatric intensive care. The Department for Health and Social Care says that by accepting the independent pay review body recommendations, we have given over 1 million NHS workers a pay rise of at least £1,400 this year. Talks between the government and the unions are continuing, but union bosses warn there'll be more action unless a serious offer on pay is made. Ellie Costello, GB News.
Very latest now, our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley in Leeds now. And you, Anna, are at an ambulance service picket line.
I am, yes. I'm joined here by GMB members, paramedics here in Leeds on the picket line, fighting for pay and improved conditions. And this morning I'm joined by Deanne Ferguson. She is the regional organiser for GMB. How are your members feeling, and what are you trying to get out of these strikes?
Yeah, I mean, it's day 68 of the dispute, and our members are really tired, they're exhausted, they're angry at this government. They didn't want 68 days of a dispute. They wanted this government to get round the table, to listen to their concerns, and to do what the Welsh and Scottish government have just recently done and put an offer on the table that would end this dispute today. So they're really upset and angry, but they're very passionate and they're standing resolute in this dispute, and they won't back down.
But if the government are saying there's just not that money here, what is the strike action really doing?
I mean, they're saying the money isn't there, but we have to look at how the government chooses to distribute that money. That we believe the money is in the pot, but obviously we're asking them to distribute it to the workers first. Obviously they will put more money year on year into the NHS, and they have to because inflation requires that. But ultimately it doesn't seem to come down to the frontline workers, and that's where we want that money to be. But as you just said at the beginning, it's not just about the pay, it's about the conditions that these guys are working under. And we want a long-term strategy to save the NHS for everybody and obviously pay the workers what they deserve.
And what is it that the ambulance workers are facing in terms of conditions? And it's recruitment as well, isn't it, that's the struggle with?
So there's over 135,000 vacancies in the NHS and over 300,000 vacancies within social care. That compounds the issues that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. So we don't have enough hospital staff at A&E to be able to take patients in. We don't have enough bed spaces. We don't have anywhere within the communities or enough spaces within the communities to put patients in there who might be well enough to leave hospital but not yet well enough to be at home. So all of that has a knock-on effect where we have crews that could be spending 12 and 24 hours handover with the same patient in the back of an ambulance, and that in itself causes huge problems health-wise, mental health on our members, but also on the patients as well.
Thank you, Deanne. Thank you for updating us this morning. So yes, here at the picket line in Leeds, a lot of frustration amongst the workers here. There is another GMB union scheduled walkout for the 20th of this month, but they're hoping that talks with the government will prevent that.
OK, Anna, thank you.
The Business Secretary, Grant Shapps, has said that Liz Truss's approach towards the economy clearly wasn't correct after the former Prime Minister says she was never given a realistic chance to enact tax cuts.
Well, meanwhile, allies of Rishi Sunak have branded her as delusional and warned that further interventions will cost the Tories the next election.
Well, here's the former campaign manager to Jeremy Hunt, Rory Welch, in the studio with his take on all of this. So Liz Truss's grievance, just outlined it to people who may not have seen the story yesterday. Her main grievance is that she was stitched up by whom?
She called it the left-wing economic establishment. And there was some talk of the Treasury not properly briefing her on certain elements of the budget. And she made it out to be a hostile environment in which to come. And it's very difficult to speak to that. It is a claim she has made. The important thing that the government need to do is to take control of this narrative again, because there is precious little time for them before the next election, and there is an awful lot that they need to do in communications terms. And the fact is that Liz Truss's comeback is not a vote winner. It is probably a vote loser, and is not what they want dominating the airwaves and, as I say, the precious bandwidth that they have.
Well, the trouble is, the policy so far of Downing Street is not to comment on this story. They obviously don't want to legitimise it in any way. And yet, it's giving this vacuum, this space, isn't it? We've not only Liz Truss, we've also seen Boris Johnson out on manoeuvres, giving his penny's worth as well. Surely Rishi Sunak needs to come out and say, look, you know, she had her go, and look what happened.
You're absolutely right in saying that you don't want to add fuel to the fire, as it were, or indeed add oxygen to it. And you're right in saying that there are two types of splits going on, both of which are probably damaging. In the you have the split of opinion of those who might be dissatisfied with Rishi and might have been Liz supporters in the first instance, or indeed legacy Boris supporters. And then both Liz and Boris sit on the right. And so they're going to split that vote on the right. And crucially, the government needs to take control of that narrative if it's to have a serious chance of retaining the red wall in any semblance of what it was in 2019.
And what does the red wall want? I mean, obviously, all Conservatives would agree they want tax cuts, they want growth, but they just have different approaches on how to get there. Do you think that Liz Truss is right to say now is the time to cut taxes, especially as she's now being effectively backed up by one of these lefty institutions that she's so critical of in terms of the IMF?
Right or wrong at this stage in the electoral cycle is not the important thing. The important thing is voter perception. And the fact is her credibility is shot on the matter in the eyes of most voters. And so she has lost her ability, as demonstrated by the polling, to speak convincingly on the economy. Because it's one thing to have good economic ideas, and it's another thing to actually be able to execute on it. I think most people, even some of her supporters, perhaps not her most ardent supporters, but some of her supporters will naturally take the line that she had her shot, it went down in flames.
I'd say she's still shooting. Who's she aiming at? I mean, you know, is Rishi Sunak her target? Is she going to take him down?
It was quite telling that Rishi Sunak was not named directly in her essay, which implies an unwillingness to direct, if we're going to use the shooting metaphor, to directly go to war with him, and it's not a fight that she wants to pick, because if to continue with the metaphor, he has rather a lot of ammunition against her. And so she was wise to not name him, but you're right in saying that the implicit criticisms were there. It is hard to tell precisely what her aim is, and we can talk in speculative terms about comebacks, but until she comes out and does it, Downing Street is somewhat hamstrung on what they can do, because they don't want to go hammer and tongs on what is at this point a nascent threat.
Well, look, she's doing a TV interview this evening. She's doing a speech next week. It's not going to be the end of Liz Truss anyway for now. A thorn in the Prime Minister's side. As you say, it all depends on what's going to be a turn on for the voters.
But Rory, if she's not positioning herself, is she opening the door for Boris Johnson?
It's very difficult to say at this stage. It seems to me that she has a motivation to rehabilitate her own image. And the next step that will come with that, the validation that might come with a future position, if we want to talk about comebacks, the likelihood of her becoming Prime Minister seems to be pretty low. Then again, the likelihood of Boris Johnson becoming Prime Minister seems pretty low. So it's very difficult to tell whether she's in cahoots with Boris Johnson or not. Or even not cahoots, but even if she's trying to support him, I think it's simply impossible to say at this early stage. We're going to have to watch it play out, and maybe the Spectator stream that she does later today will shed more light on that.
Yeah.
Political commentator Rory Welch, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
It's 7:14. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. The head of Epsom College has been found dead alongside her husband and her 7-year-old daughter. The bodies of Emma Patterson, her daughter Letty and her husband George were found at the prestigious boarding school in the early hours of yesterday morning. Surrey police are investigating but say they're confident it was an isolated incident with no third-party involvement.
A former Metropolitan Police officer, one of Britain's most prolific sex offenders, is due to be sentenced at Southwark Crown Court today. David Carrick admitted to 24 counts of rape, charges of sexual assault, controlling and coercive behaviour and false imprisonment over an 18-year period while serving as an officer.
A magnitude 7.8 earthquake shook both Turkey and Syria early this morning, leaving the death toll at more than 300. That figure is expected to rise. Many buildings have collapsed in the hit area, and rescue teams are searching through the rubble for survivors.
Beyonce broke the record for most Grammy Awards of all time when she won her 32nd. The American singer won the Best Dance Electronic Music Album for her latest Renaissance recording. Actress Viola Davis got EGOT status, which means she's won about everything there is to win. All of that happened last night.
Well, it's been a long 16 days for parents and pupils in Scotland. Teachers are on the final day of their strike over pay. Members from the country's largest teaching union are campaigning for a 10% pay increase in the face of a drop in real terms income.
Holyrood has made 4 offers to date, none of them above 5%. Our Scotland reporter Tony Maguire with the latest.
Today marks the end of 16 days of teacher strikes across Scotland, with union members spending 3 days on picket lines since November. Having turned down 4 offers already, their 10% demand is unwavering. The Scottish Government says it's simply not affordable.
It's disgraceful that teachers have had to take 3 days of strike action already just in pursuit of fair pay. But if they have to, they are prepared to take more strike action. We're looking at the 28th of February and the 1st of March. But hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully the Scottish Government and COSLA will step in and do the right thing, bring the right amount of resource to the table to bring an end to this dispute.
COSLA, the group representing Scottish Council interests at the negotiation table, responded to our request for comment. Councillor and spokesperson Katie Hagman said, COSLA leaders are clear that given the financial pressures being faced, it remains the case that the 10% ask of the trade unions remains unaffordable, and therefore we still remain a distance apart in terms of a settlement.
But of course there's another affected party in this scenario, and that's why I'm here in Dunfermline to meet the Stewart family.
David is a hybrid worker working in 9 to 5, Joanne is self-employed, and Rebecca is in Primary 1. They've had to juggle their days around 3 times already to accommodate for teacher strikes.
Who would you vote for?
The conversations I've had, broadly speaking, they're all really supportive of the actual sort of striking, because, you know, they know that the teachers need to be paid a fair salary.
You don't want teachers going to food banks, you don't want teachers struggling to pay the mortgages, which are getting higher. We want teachers to be here for a long time. We want the good teachers to stay in their jobs and to teach our kids.
It comes down to, I'm fortunate, I'm self-employed, I can juggle my day about, but some of the parents have said, you know, things like, oh, you know, I really am just literally having to give my kid the telly remote or a games console and get on with it.
Both sides now have 3 weeks to strike a deal and avoid further walkouts in spring. Meanwhile, it's parents like David and Joanne who are left to prepare for every eventuality. This is Tony Maguire for GB News in Scotland.
With that, we'll take a break after that, talking sport as the Tottenham captain Harry Kane breaks his club's all-time goal-scoring record.
We'll be happy. He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh yes, already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At 23 minutes past 7, good morning to you. Eamonn and Isabel here at breakfast.
Lots more still to come on the programme, including a forensic deep dive into the Happy Valley season finale. That's in around 15 minutes' time. This is your official spoiler alert. If you aren't all caught up, remember, that's in 15 minutes.
20 past 8, we're going to be speaking to the man whose life was transformed with the help of genius medical intervention. They were able to sort that news out. Do you want to see the new nose he's got? And we will show it to you 20
wow,
past 8
look at
this
that.
morning.
Changed his life. Best money he ever spent. Really fascinating, and given him his life back. So really excited to talk to
Incredible.
him about all of that.
If you've had your nose fixed, if you want your nose fixed,
You've got a very,
what you've had, what?
very tidy nose.
Tidy nose.
Yeah,
it's all
nose.
my own. No, the most beautiful nose I've ever seen.
Ruthie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's like a ski slope.
Aw, that's a lovely thing to say.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
most
Ruthie.
men would like to say my wife's got the most perfect. Well.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Anyway. Right. Okay. So
sport.
Here's the sport. Yes. Let's have a look at the back pages, and really there's only one story in town. It's Harry Kane, and all the back pages. Daily Mail, first of all, says he's the greatest. He becomes Tottenham's record goal scorer, and it also leads to that story in the Mirror, saying Harry wants to be a Shearer because he sets his sight on Alan Shearer's Premier League scoring record of 260. And Harry's got what? Harry's got how many?
In the Premier League, we're less around 200, but 266 in all.
Oh, yeah.
Or 267 is his record now, yeah.
Telegraph reports on the Six Nations at the weekend. Great win for Ireland over Wales. And this is rugby. Steve Borthwick delivered a damning indictment of the squad he inherited from Eddie Jones, England losing to Scotland. So here's Paul. And Paul, I'll tell you what, Paul was there with all the action yesterday at what is the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium called? What is it?
It's called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
There you are. But anyway, here is Paul out there in the thick of it.
Hello. Now look.
Is he just
I'm
very
not
tall?
3'4".
But is he just very tall? Is he like 9 foot tall or
so
something?
happy. Look how happy
I was
you
having
are,
a lovely
Paul.
time,
It's the
yeah.
best day ever when you get to hang out with Harry. You love Harry.
I do love Harry, yeah.
I love Harry.
It was very exciting. It was because it was straight after the game, so it was organised that, if he broke the record, the great Jimmy Greaves record of... Look, that's ridiculous. I mean, I look about 3'2".
I need to get you a box to stand on.
The truth is, Isabel, is that I was actually 30 feet behind him, and that was the reason that I look so small in there. But that was after the game. So straight after the game, he broke the record, which has stood since 1970 that Jimmy Greaves has held. So 267 goals for Tottenham Hotspur. Although there is a slight controversy around it because it's now been dug up. Have you heard about this? Yeah. But saying, actually, Jimmy Greaves scored 2 in the Charity Shield back in 1967.
But Spurs don't count that as a competitive game.
That's true, but that Jimmy Greaves record, this is going back 50 years, so they've always not really counted it, but it doesn't really matter because Harry's going to score 2 more probably over the next couple of games anyway. But it's an incredible record and an incredible human being. I will always say how lovely he is and well-deserved as well.
Not to tarnish the day at all.
Oh, dear.
But it was a win over Manchester City, who are Arsenal's closest rivals in the Premier League.
Yes.
You did Arsenal a favour.
Effectively, yes, I suppose so.
Yeah.
But there's 2 ways of looking at it. We can think, you know what? What do you do in that situation? I'll tell you what you've got to do. You just got to go and win your own games.
You've got to do that.
And everybody else worry about their own thing.
So here, who else was there in the crowd? Who else did you bump into?
Kenneth Branagh.
Wow.
Northern Ireland's second most famous son. so Ken was there.
Why does he support Spurs then?
I tell you why. Eamonn, do you know why?
Because we don't have any teams of our own, or we didn't in those days.
Pat Jennings, because he was a huge Pat Jennings
fan. Same with me, George Best.
I know, So he's a huge Pat Jennings fan.
Those were the days where you used to get people in your local town or whatever, then joining the big clubs. Now they're all from Venezuela and Guatemala, goodness knows where. But
But it was a fantastic result, and also Manchester City, who didn't look that great, I've got to tell you. I just wasn't overly impressed with them.
Yeah.
Spurs came out, and they've got this incredible record. You know what? There are teams that have bogey sides that they play against that for some reason it never works. Manchester City, they're the champions. They've played at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium 5 times. They've lost every time and not scored a goal. which is incredible when you look at a team like Man City. But, you know, we're the hoodoo team to them.
OK. So Forest down at the other end of the table. Forest Leeds just hovering over that relegation zone. Forest doing themselves some favour with a 1-0 win yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're talking about Jesse Marsh. So Jesse Marsh, who's the coach. There's a few coaches and managers who are now hovering around the plug hole and thinking, are they going to drop down? Jesse Marsh is one of them. They're having a really bad time at the moment at Leeds. Another one, we could mention Nathan Jones as well at Southampton, although he's only just come in there. This is a man that's actually gone into his press conference afterwards, pretty much thrown the team under the bus and referred to himself in the third person, which for me, Paul Coit would say that anybody that actually refers to themselves in the third person, I think, should be fired from their job anyway. But, I mean, what's that about? And also, then we look at Jurgen Klopp, who would have thought the trouble that they're in as well. So they look like the three that are in trouble. But Jesse Marsh is the one.
Sean Dyche, big impact at Everton straight away.
Huge. I mean, it was a huge result that was for them. They got them playing, and I think that Everton, I think we said that before, that may get out of trouble with Sean Dyche. Early days, though. Early days.
Great Britain won a first four-man bobsleigh medal at the World Championships for 84 years. Silver in San Moritz.
You know, we had Brad Hall on the show, actually, when you were both off, actually. And Brad, who's the pilot of the bobsleigh team, and this is the Germans just run bobsleigh. I mean, when it comes to bobsleigh, they have the best bob, and they have the best. Everything about them always wins. But Britain, Brad got his own funding. He had the actual bobsleigh built as well. He's trained the team, and they've done incredibly well. So, and it's in St Moritz, first time. It's just unheard of. So going back to 1939, the last time this happened. So they got silver medal, World Championships, which was just behind the Germans, but only just. So they're brilliant performance.
Just a quick word about the Six Nations action over the weekend. I mean, now, there are 5 nations and then there's Italy.
Yes.
And Italy are put in there so everybody can get extra points. Really. I mean, they never win anything. What are they there for? What are they there for? But they nearly beat France yesterday.
Nearly did. Yeah, that's it. They nearly did. I mean, they were 24-22 up, and it was like, there's a possibility that Italy may beat France. France haven't lost in 14 matches, and they're the favourites for the Six Nations. They're probably the favourites for the World Cup later on in the year. Italy, very close, but as all great teams do, turned it round right at the end. And, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's football, whether it be rugby, that's when the class shows. See, if you've got to turn it around.
Well for England in the Six Nations.
It doesn't bode too well, but it's early days for England and Steve Borthwick as well, so yes.
Well, we're turning it around into the break now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Little Paul.
Oh, no. This is going to run with me forever, this is.
No.
I'm 6'3". It's just that Harry's over 8 foot tall.
How tall is Harry?
He's got to be, 6'2", but I told you, he was standing further away from me. Look at that. He looks like he's going to pat me on the head.
You don't even come up to his armpit.
Yeah, I know, but neither would you if you were standing as far away as I am.
That's a very good job you have there, though, Tottenham, isn't it?
It's not bad. I'm hoping to maybe play 15 minutes in the next game. We'll see how things go. If they want a small striker, of course.
Squeeze you in.
Oh, thank you.
Paul, thank you very much. We're going to take a break. After that, we're back with Dawn Neeson and Sean McDonald with the papers. See you in a moment.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good to see you again. The time, 25 to 8. Let's bring you up to date with the front pages of your newspapers. Daily Mail, first of all.
It's revealing the health service spends £400,000 a day on private ambulances and taxis for patients.
The Mirror leads with the missing mum, Nicola Bulley. Images taken by a doorbell camera at her home are released. 1 hour later, she vanished, says the headline.
The Times go with delusional Truss, who they say will cost votes as Sunak's allies hit out at the former Prime Minister's plotting a return.
The Star weather story, the beast from the east will return, which will leave Britain colder than the Arctic.
OK, we're going through the papers joined this morning by former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and broadcaster and podcast host Sean McDonald. Welcome back to both of you. Dawn, can we start with you? A story in the Star, as we were discussing it there, talking about the cost of policing so-called Tarquin protests.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Daily Star have always referred to the eco-protesters as Tarquins, because many of them probably are called Tarquin, and that's just the women. But this is actually a serious story, and they've actually found out that the Just Stop Oil protests in London have actually cost taxpayers £7.5 million in just 9 weeks. This is latest figures from the Metropolitan Police reveal the huge amount of money it costs the police to just turn up and monitor them, because they didn't actually do anything, did they? They just made the cups of tea and looked at what they were doing. Didn't actually arrest anyone. And it was like 13,600 officer shifts were used from October the 1st to November the 14th, and between November the 28th and December the 14th. And this is, as we all know, the people that were climbing gantries over motorways and gluing themselves to roads and chucking paint at buildings, etc., etc. Now, look, it's all very well if the police had turned up and done something, which they just said they didn't, and if the Met Police weren't in such a dire state in any case. I mean, you know, arrest rates for, in particular, sex offences are through the floor, convictions are through the floor, and we're wasting time and money to have the police standing around watching people gluing themselves to bits of tarmac. Yeah. It's a hideous waste of money. It's very annoying.
And interesting to get a figure on it as well.
Absolutely, and a frighteningly high one.
The mind, yeah.
Matt, turning on the telly last night, there are two tube stories, I suppose. There was Happy Valley, which we'll come to later on BBC. And then there was the former Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, front row of Dancing on Ice on ITV. Why does Matt Hancock think he's a celebrity or a personality, or that anybody's remotely interested in watching him?
I'm absolutely convinced that Matt Hancock has got incriminating images of somebody at ITV, or he's got something over people, because why is he there? The guy's a personality vacuum. I called him a wet lettuce before. I did have to laugh. He was sitting beside Paul Chuckle of the Chuckle Brothers. And so now Paul Chuckle from the Chuckle Brothers was still more serious than Matt Hancock. He's the least serious guy in there. I cannot understand it. It's very frustrating. I think I would once again like to circle back that this guy was the health secretary that presided over absolute chaos, that broke his own rules, and we're sitting letting this wee guy just swan about as if he's part of the reality TV set.
Is it a new syndrome within the Conservative Party that once you leave office, you kind of come back to haunt? No one has any sort of humility anymore.
I actually thought the scariest thing I would see on telly last night was Tommy Lee Royce's behaviour in Happy Valley. And then I happened to catch Matt Hancock on Dancing on Ice. And it was just like, and what, his dressing room is like some sort of weird teenager.
Completely robotic.
But you see, people talk about, he took money and he appeared on I'm a Celebrity, he took, what was it, 320,000 quid or so, they're saying. But ITV never comes in for the criticism which they should get, because they offered the money.
Absolutely.
And yet they escape all the criticism.
Absolutely. I think ITV do deserve a lot of criticism. It's showing complete contempt for the British electorate, the British public. The way that this guy just absolutely extracted the proverbial out of everybody. And so ITV say, no, it's OK, we're just going to put him on TV now. So you're showing deliberate contempt for the people up and down Britain, people who couldn't attend funerals, people that lost loved ones, people that couldn't even meet a pal for a beer for such a long time. And what we're supposed to go, OK, ITV says it's fine, don't think so.
I do think I can understand the logic from a TV executive's point of view of putting him on something like I'm a Celebrity, because people wanted to punish him, didn't they? So it got the ratings and it got the votes. But why would you stick him in the audience and not only that, like go and talk to him during an ice skating competition? I don't.
Well, you see, there's the Ed Balls model, where Ed Balls was, what was he, Shadow Chancellor at one stage, and very credible politician, and his wife was in the Shadow Cabinet.
Still is, yeah.
And, and he's done incredibly well over a number of programmes. But if Matt Hancock thinks he's Ed Balls, there's another thing coming here. I just don't think there's the likability.
I actually disagree with Sean on the ITV thing, because I think it's like, if I was running a TV company and I wanted to get eyeballs, I would employ Matt Hancock. And in ITV's defence, Matt Hancock did say he was actually...
ITV is the cancel culture, the woke station of all of them.
Absolutely.
And they're the ones who then offer this man 300,000 quid to come on a programme. And I agree with everything that Sean said.
Matt Hancock did say he was going to give it to charity and mention dyslexia. He mentioned dyslexia twice, and he gave like 10 grand to charity and kept the rest himself. But he also protested he wasn't doing it for the money. Well, in which case, give all of them.
Yeah, can we also just point out the man is currently a serving politician?
Oh God, yeah.
And if he's incumbent to his constituents. He should be doing his job. He shouldn't be in the limelight. He shouldn't be dancing on ice. I would love to know how many surgeries he's had in the past 6 months, let's say, since he's been doing his TV work.
Maybe our viewers or listeners are from his constituency. Let us know your thoughts on that this morning. Should we talk now, Dawn, about terminology?
This is in the Telegraph.
Harsh terminology.
Yes, this is in
Do you want the Telegraph? Do you need the Telegraph?
No,
there you go, page 9.
I've got it in front of me. It's here. I did have my glasses.
There you go.
It's middle-age hell.
Right,
OK, this is a lady called Anna Taylor. She's a communications director, and she has issued a guide, Evolving from Violent Language, OK, and she thinks we should start not using idioms like jump the gun, roll with the punches, straight shooter, stop, killing two birds with one stone.
Cancel Delilah at the Welsh rugby,
Eamonn, stop. Killing two birds with one stone should become feeding two birds with one scone. Because obviously, as we all know, that if you ever use that phrase, you become some sort of mad serial killer or attacks people, because it's the language that makes you do that. I mean, it's just insane. Just make it stop.
There's one that they put in that says, don't say jump the gun, say something else, and it's, I think it's saying it's suggesting violence, but that actually originates from the starting gun and going too early. So it's not even related to violence anyway.
Of the word gun.
Yeah, exactly. I think you could be very analytical about these things. We could sit and debate it back and forth and talk about it, or we could just say, shut up, mate, and move on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to go for.
It's like people, I could often use the word hate. Oh, I hate cinnamon, or I hate that programme, or whatever. And people often go, hate's a very strong word. I don't hate anything. I hate lots of things. I just want to put it on record. And lots of people. I have no difficulty hating. If I want to hate, am I not allowed to hate?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it as well within your rights.
It's not good for you, though, Eamonn, just saying.
It's lovely. It's really good.
It's not good for you.
It's
very
get it out rather than internalise it. Present company accepted, though, Eamonn, obviously.
No, I think people have the right to hate and the right to...
He didn't deny that, did he, actually?
No.
No. Should we talk about apprenticeships? This is also in the Telegraph, Sean, front page, and I know Labour want to talk about it this morning. Better value than a degree.
Yes, I just have to find it footing about with my fiddly...
It's not my middle-aged guys.
What's going on?
Where are we? I know. I had it because I was moving to look.
We didn't want to start with the one on the list.
This is something from John Glenn. He's the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, and he's basically encouraging, I mean, quite interesting language, but middle-class parents should encourage their children to do apprenticeships instead of going to university, and that they can offer a fantastic return on investment. Quite interesting that he's looking at kids as an asset that has to be invested in. But I do agree, I think there is a really good point here. University is not for everybody. I didn't go to university. I wasn't particularly academic, although I don't think I'm lacking in completely lacking intelligence. But there are
not thick, put it that
not
way.
thick. There are different ways, I think, to do things. I think it's good, you know, to encourage people that there are different ways to learn and to do well. I've got a pal right now, Guy Jamie, who went and did a degree, didn't use it. He did an apprenticeship and he now surveys the world's oceans.
And
Very
you
interesting.
saddle yourself with £40,000 worth of debt.
Yeah, I know. So there are different ways to do things. I think it's a very positive thing. Encourage people to pursue other things other than academia.
Encourage people to grow up more quickly. I do think university plays a role in keeping people almost like children. I do think the longer you're in education, the longer it takes for you to have to pay your own, pay your own way, effectively. And I speak for myself. I just was an oversized child when I was going into the world of work at 23 or whatever it was, because I'd done a degree and then a postgrad, and it came as a bit of a shock when I had to grow up.
You learn how to
I do
deal.
think there's a lot to be said about
you learn how to deal with people as well, don't you?
Say again?
You learn how to deal with people and just how to sort of interact in the real world.
Absolutely.
Well, lovely. Thanks for all those thoughts, guys. For the time now at 7:45, we say goodbye to Dawn and Sean. They're back in 45 minutes' time. Meanwhile, we'll bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise.
Today is predicted to be the biggest day of industrial action in the history of the NHS, as nurses and ambulance staff are walking out in a dispute over pay. The Royal College of Nursing will stage a 2-day strike and is expected to be joined by twice as many of its members as it did earlier in the strikes.
A private underwater rescue company will join the search for Nicola Bulley as fresh images of her have been released. The specialist diving company, SGI, will assist police in searching the River Wire after offering its services free of charge.
The Princess of Wales has urged school children to keep talking about their feelings as she marked the start of Children's Mental Health Week. Kate joined pupils in London's East End in raising the importance of being open with feelings. It's after she launched her Shaping Us campaign, which raises the profile of early years development for children.
Just looking through the reviews of last night's Happy Valley, described by one TV critic as a sensational end to a truly great drama.
Yeah, the show's director promised to take us on a rollercoaster ride with a satisfying ending. So was that how you find it? Let us know your thoughts or found it. We can take a little look at the moment that Sergeant Catherine Kaywood came face to face with the notorious Tommy Lee Royce for the final time.
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
I want you to nudge that knife towards me, gently.
You think I'm going to hurt you? I'm not going to hurt you.
Oh, but I might hurt you if you don't do like I say.
Now! It's not very relaxing before bed watching, is it? Happy Valley. We don't have to worry about it anymore, but my blood pressure...
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that from that point of view. But I'm going to miss it on a Sunday evening now. This morning's showbiz reporter and avid fan of Happy Valley, Stephanie Tachi, who's here to talk us through...
Good morning, Eamonn and Isabel.
I have to say, I was a wee bit disappointed that it seemed very rushed at the end.
I agree with you on that,
yes.
Eamonn.
And I thought there were a lot of storylines I wanted to see visually come to a conclusion. That's all I would say.
OK, I sound a bit of a sadist because I wanted to see Tommy suffer because I don't know if I can mention about the fire, but I wanted to see him in hospital and all we got was just a text that he had passed away. So I wanted more suffering on that. But he wasn't also the only killer in the show because there was the pharmacist.
Yes.
So we hear, you know, she gives a tip-off and gives his name and we don't hear about what's happened to him. And then also she talks about this dream holiday of her wanting to go to the Himalayas.
Well, she had the Jeep packed up.
That.
No, but she had the, and this is left for us to read into it, but she had the Land Rover packed up at the end. So I'm suspecting she was heading down the M1 or whatever towards the Himalayas.
But you know what? It doesn't take away from the success that this show has because, you know, it was one of the greatest British finales I've seen on TV. You know, I think the whole nation, you probably could have heard a pin drop as she came head-to-head with Tommy Lee Royce. It's one of those things, we've been on a journey with this show over the past 9 years, you know, this story of her overcoming the grief of her daughter and seeking vengeance against him, and it's been one of those gripping dramas that is on television. You know, the BBC get a lot of flack, but they can't get flack for Happy Valley.
No, I absolutely agree.
That was totally outstanding, and it's been, you know, the brainchild of Sarah Wainwright, and she's done it amazingly. You know, when shows like this have some loose ends, like she says it's the total end of the series, but I think there's room for it to come back in the future.
There was definite rooms. There was wriggle room there.
But Sarah Lancaster, she says she feels like she's too old to play the role now because she said it was quite taxing on her playing a sergeant. But I think she's one of the, you know, one of the country's most astounding actors. So I think it will be great for her to revive the role in the future.
It's the combination, isn't it, of a fantastic director, a fantastic script and a brilliant cast. And it's rare that all three come together.
Definitely.
And that's just sort of the holy trinity, isn't it?
TV magic, because, you know, you can't fault any of the actors. Obviously, I mentioned Sarah Lancashire, but it's James Norton as well. In real life, he's so different from his character.
Good.
But seeing him, but he, you know, he's brought that sinister role to life, and then obviously his son Ryan as well. All three together was just TV magic. And
Let's not forget Yorkshire. Yorkshire was a big star.
Did you see those lovely scenes of the valleys? Like,
there were some nice scenes, but they also showed kind of an ugly side to Yorkshire as well. It made me
you have to have the good and the bad. That is written for you. But it's been predicted almost 6 million viewers tuned in yesterday, so that just goes to speak about how great this show is.
There was a few useless people, useless characters who I thought I wanted to see something happening to them. There was the Claire's not useless husband. Our boyfriend. What? No,
no. He
and
played
Richard.
His part. He played his part.
Kate's ex.
No, I like them. I wanted to see them get back together at the end. Actually,
oh, and
it seems like it's been leading
too
up
strong
to that.
for him.
No, well, you know, every woman needs a man
him.
like that. Well, you know what? He apologised. He apologised for being a coward, actually.
Did he?
So yeah, he did because he wasn't there for her once Becky had died in the first series.
The young lad as well.
Connor.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely super.
I would have liked to see more at the end with him as well. Like, you know, for him, obviously, he also has been on a journey, but at the end, he just kind of disappears a bit. But, you know, again, there's that chemistry between all three, and I just hope that we can get another series where we can see that magic again and such a storyline.
It's always funny seeing kids growing up on TV.
Yeah, I know.
It must be very strange to go through puberty on screen in a show like that.
James Norton sent some. He posted up some pictures of him yesterday. Like when he started, he was about 5 or 6 with blonde hair, and now look at him. So it's amazing. But I think, you know, what I loved about this series, it brings up topics about, you know, whether a murderer can actually seek restoration and forgiveness. You know, it was quite interesting, those kind of thought-provoking topics.
But it was interesting that, you know, he was built up that we hate him through 17 episodes, and then the 18th that we expected to feel sorry for him.
I know, because I think all he really wanted to do was be a father and have that time with Ryan. He was seeking seeking forgiveness, but you cannot forget the crime that he did, which was quite ghastly.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. Well, in complete stark contrast, the Grammys last night crowned
Queen Bee.
Queen Bee as the most decorated. Is that the official term?
That is
like
the most decorated,
military term.
which in layman terms mean the most awarded artist. So she overtook classical conductor George Solti, who had 31 Grammys under his belt. But now, last night, she received her 32nd one. She picked up 4 nominations. She picked up Best Dance/Electronic Album, Best R&B Song, Best Dance/Electronic Recording, and Best Traditional R&B Performance.
She is just a
She's
goddess.
unstoppable. She's unstoppable. If she didn't get that accolade, I think it would have been a big controversy. And, you know, she's been in the industry, like this month will be 20 years since she released her first album, and we have to give credit where it's due.
Would you go and see her Renaissance
Oh, my
tour?
gosh, I've been queuing up. I've been queuing up virtually.
Have they not sold out already?
No. So there's been pre-sales. So O2 Priority customers have been able to get through, but that's all sold out. They're bringing a next batch yesterday. But when I went on Friday, I had like 8,000 people in front of me. And unless you're going to sit in front of a computer all day long, it's a wrap. It's not going to happen.
All year long, I would say.
But you know what? She's worth it. When you see Beyonce in the flesh on stage, she will give you a show, but tickets are going for £2,000.
I saw her last tour here in London, in Wembley. My husband bought tickets because he knew I was a huge fan, and we were standing quite near the front, and he halfway through said, "Are you all right? Are you enjoying it?" Because I wasn't dancing, I wasn't singing, I wasn't smiling. I was completely and utterly starstruck. I couldn't move. I was just... She was just everything I wanted and more.
I've been to every single Beyonce concert. Me and my best friend, since we're 14 years old, we just follow her all over the place. And you just never know when she'll be back in action. So I think it'll be worth it. But if you've got £2,000 to spare, let me know. Bootylicious.
OK.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much indeed. 6 minutes now before 8 o'clock. We're going to take a break there. After that, we're going to have more on this, the biggest healthcare strike day in NHS history.
Hello, very good morning to you. The clear skies overnight across much of England and Wales means there's some frost and fog around to start, but then we'll have sunny spells, whilst in the north it's looking cloudier with some drizzly rain. The reason for the settled weather across much of the UK is this area of high pressure, but that's going to clear away towards the east, and then this weather front waiting out in the west is going to arrive as we go later on in the day. Through this morning there is some fog to watch out for, particularly across parts of the east and southeast of England, but that should clear as we go through the morning, and so the things will be largely bright for a time, but we are going to see the cloud in the northwest spreading somewhat, so many places turning cloudier through the day. The thickest cloud across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland with some outbreaks of drizzly rain, but because of the southerly flow that we have, I am expecting some brighter breaks to develop across northern parts of Scotland, and here that's where temperatures are going to be highest, could get into double figures. As we go through the end of the day, that front that I mentioned earlier is going to push its way in from the northwest. So a spell of rain reaching into northwest Scotland and then later into Northern Ireland, gradually making its way southeastwards overnight. Ahead of this, across parts of England and Wales, again, we're going to have largely clear skies, which means temperatures are going to plummet. Could get as low as -4, -5 Celsius, so a widespread and at times harsh frost, and once more likely to see some fog and freezing fog developing, which could cause some problems through Tuesday morning's rush hour. As we go through Tuesday itself, though, that front is gradually going to make its way southwards. It is going to bring some rain, but it's weakening and breaking up as it goes, so many places staying largely dry. Some bright sunny spells developing to the north of this and staying largely sunny towards the south, though notice temperatures a bit disappointing, a bit below average for the time of year, milder further north. There will be some further changeable weather to come as we go through this week, and after a dry start in the south, I am expecting a little bit of rain by the end of the week even here, and with that temperatures probably picking up, so a chilly start but turning somewhat milder. See you later.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The biggest round of NHS walkouts in history starts today.
A very good morning. Welcome on board. It's 8 o'clock. It's Monday, the 6th of February. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Thanks for your company. Leading the news this morning, tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance workers in England and Wales will go on strike today. NHS leaders have called this the biggest round of industrial action in its history. Health Minister Maria Caulfield told us the government can't afford to meet the strikers' demands.
Difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. We just can't afford inflation-busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
Liz Truss is continuing her comeback campaign. She's been called delusional, though, after speaking out for the first time since being ousted as Prime Minister, arguing she wasn't given a realistic chance to implement her radical fiscal plans.
A special diving team will use helicopter and sonar technology to assist in the search for Nicola Bulley. This comes as new video footage has been released showing her movements about an hour before she disappeared.
And be honest, have you ever faked being ill? Today, the first Monday in February, is when most people call in sick to work, and we'll be asking this morning, is it okay to skive off occasionally?
Well, here's how bad it is at work. Offices were the busiest they have been in nearly 2 years last month. You won't believe how busy they were. Occupancy at offices reached 34.4%.
Well, just because they're not in the office doesn't mean they're not working. People work from home, don't
I'm
they?
saying
Oh,
offices.
right.
I'm simply
Yeah.
saying
Oh.
there's only 34.4% of offices being used.
Yeah.
So it's, I know that's a staunch defence of your husband, I know.
I'm just saying, it's
Each
not
time we do
sicky,
this.
is it, if you're
No,
working from
but no,
home?
and that's not what
Different.
I'm saying. I'm saying this is how bad the situation is. People just don't go into work
Yeah.
anymore. And to reach the highest and the busiest for 2 years at a third of occupancy is incredible, incredible. But then Lord Alan Sugar believes working from home reduces creativity and prevents new recruits from getting on. Remit's director Lorna Liddell put the increase down to employers demanding people go to work while some go in as they're worried about the cost of heating homes. Everyone is dog-tired of being home all the time.
There you go. So let us know your thoughts this morning. gbnews@gbnews.uk.
So, top story this morning, the biggest day of strikes in NHS history begins today as nurses in England, some in Wales, stage a 12-hour strike over pay and conditions.
Well, alongside nurses, many ambulance workers will take industrial action in their dispute over pay and staffing, and patients could again face disruption to operations and appointments, though nurses are to continue providing emergency care.
OK, now earlier we spoke to the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield, who urged the union to call off the strike and get back round the table.
It's difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. We just can't afford inflation-busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
You're talking about being the custodians of the public purse, and yet the public actually understand why they are asking for what they're asking.
Well, absolutely. But my disappointment, I guess, with the RCN this morning is that in Scotland they've called off the strikes because they're prepared to talk about this year's pay rise, which starts from April. We are in exactly the same boat. We are very happy, and the Secretary of State has been discussing this year's pay award and working conditions with them, but they've called off the strikes in Scotland but not in England. So my plea to the RCN is we're very happy to discuss this year's pay award, and we'd really value them calling off the strikes and getting back round the table.
Well, our national reporter Ellie Costello has more on this.
Enough is enough! It's the first time that nurses and ambulance staff have joined the picket line together. It's poised to be the biggest strike in NHS history. So, who's involved? While continuing its series of strikes, the Royal College of Nursing expects more than 30,000 nurses to walk out across 73 NHS trusts in England. Previous action involved up to 55 trusts. The GMB union believes more than 10,000 ambulance workers will also take part in strikes across 7 regions in England and Wales. And the Unite union is preparing for around 2,600 of its members to walk off the job in 4 English regions and in Wales. All 3 unions are demanding better pay and conditions. They blame the government for underfunding the NHS and its staff for years.
And I've never been more concerned about patient safety, and nor have my colleagues. Patients are not getting the treatment they deserve, and we are not able to deliver the care that we've signed up to give them. All around, all we want is a better deal, not for just the staff, but for the patients. They deserve so much better.
It just can't continue. It's too heartbreaking. It's a job that I love, but I need to pay my bills, and we need to keep people in the profession. Nursing students don't want to be nurses. Experienced nurses are leaving. There will be no one left. And I don't blame them, but I can't imagine doing anything else.
The strike will cause disruption. Thousands of operations and appointments face being cancelled, and a bank holiday-style service is expected in many areas. 62-year-old Gary Coogan has been waiting for triple bypass surgery for nearly 2 years.
It feels like all the institutions you've paid into, when it comes around to you needing them, they let you down for their own reasons, but I'm not the one that's put any of these institutions into these situations.
When do we get it? Now! How do we get it? Strike! The Royal College of Nursing has agreed to staff chemotherapy centres, emergency cancer services, dialysis, critical care units, neonatal and paediatric intensive care. The Department for Health and Social Care says that by accepting the independent pay review body recommendations, we have given over 1 million NHS workers a pay rise of at least £1,400 this year. Talks between the government and the unions are continuing, but union bosses warn there'll be more action unless a serious offer on pay is made. Ellie Costello, GB News.
Well, earlier this morning we spoke to Liverpool Foundation Trust nurse Kelly Hopkins, who said she's still waiting for the government to act.
I'm hoping that the government will make an offer. They've made an offer in Wales. Scotland are negotiating, but our government just don't seem to want to come and sit down and discuss it and talk. I think they're just hoping that eventually we'll go away. And I don't think we can now. I think we've come to this point. I never in my 25 years of being a qualified nurse thought I would be going to a picket line this morning.
From Liverpool, we go to the famous St Thomas's Hospital in London, and our national reporter Paul Hawkins there for us this morning. Paul, good morning. Oh, he's not there. I lied to you. He's not there. Meanwhile, we'll tell you about the Business Secretary, Grant Shapps, has said that Liz Truss's approach towards the economy clearly was not correct.
Yeah, this is after the former Prime Minister started a comeback. She says she was never given a realistic chance to enact tax cuts.
Meanwhile, allies of the Prime Minister branded her as delusional. They warned that further interventions will cost the Conservatives the next election.
Well, joining us now is our political reporter, Olivia Utley. Is that fair? Do you think that, it will actually cause more infighting within the party? Is her contribution welcome?
Well, I think it's definitely fair to say that it will cause more division in the party. Already we're seeing this is just the first intervention, it seems, from Liz Truss. She's now going to go in on China, and we know that during the leadership election in the summer, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss disagreed about the approach to take to China, with people like Ian Duncan-Smith, an ally of Liz Truss, essentially calling what Rishi Sunak's doing appeasement. So I think that, yes, this is definitely likely to spark further division. We know that those disagreements about whether or not to raise taxes are deeply embedded in the Conservative Party. But it's quite difficult for Rishi Sunak's allies at the moment, because everything that Liz Truss said in that essay was essentially that Conservative ideas weren't given a chance by the economic establishment, which is too Blairite. And for them to challenge that looks as though they might not really be Conservatives at all. So again, we seem to be at a row to what is the heart of the Conservative Party. And people like Grant Shapps, who say that it could cost the next election seeing a divided Conservative Party, Liz Truss's allies would argue that it could cost the Conservatives the next election not being a real Conservative Party, not laying out those low tax promises, that bottom-up growth agenda that she laid out in her leadership bid. So yes, we are definitely going to see more division in the Conservative Party in the months ahead. But it could be that that Liz Truss's intervention is quite useful in that it pushes the Conservative Party back in the kind of low tax direction that many think is their only route to winning the election.
Or it's just an out-and-out revenge on Rishi Sunak.
Well, there's definitely an element of that, and I think it would be wrong to underestimate the extent to which these two really, really personally dislike each other. We saw in that leadership campaign, Rishi Sunak, who is so slick and so rarely loses his cool, just repeatedly lose his cool with Liz Truss. And now we're seeing Liz Truss have this comeback where, yes, she digs the knife into the economic establishment, but there is also a jibe in that essay at Conservative allies who didn't respect her mandate. And I think not too thinly veiled a dig there at Rishi Sunak. So it's not great for the unity of the party, but our allies would say perhaps that's not the most important thing right now.
I mean, not just about the unity of the party, I suppose electoral prospects. There'll be lots of people who aren't Conservative, or perhaps even there are Conservatives who go, hang on a minute, I'm paying more on my mortgage every month as a direct result of Liz Truss's policies. She made £45 billion of unfunded tax cuts in that kamikaze budget. And here she's giving advice to the Chancellor, who steadied the economy and put things back on track.
Well, absolutely, and there are plenty of people who feel exactly like that about it. Her defence would be that some of the policies that she put in place, the energy package, for example, and the stamp duty package in particular, have made it easier for ordinary people to, get on the housing ladder, etc. But yes, it's going to go down very badly with Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt, who've both maintained that they do want a low-tax economy, but they can't afford to do it now. And then there are those Conservatives who say you can't afford not to do it now. The only way that the Conservative government can win the next election is by being sort of proper low-tax Conservatives.
What way would the markets, this lefty, market that she's talking about and the Treasury and whatever, what way would they respond to that shift in policy going back to what Liz Truss had initially proposed? Would their nerves be more steadied this time, or?
Well, Rishi Sunak, what Liz Truss says, and there is some truth in this, is that the markets just weren't ready for what she did, and she was naive in thinking, I think this is agreed by everyone, even her allies, she was naive in thinking that she could just circumvent the OBR, she could just circumvent all of these institutions that have been set up. So Rishi Sunak now has managed to steady the markets, he's managed to bring inflation down, and there is an argument that he is now in a better position to push forward some low-tax policies than she was 6 months ago. But he will say that, of course, the priority is getting inflation down. He's actually done a very good job of doing that so far, and he is expected to halve it in the next year or so. That's his plan. And he would say that doing that means that you can't just lower taxes. We can't afford to do that. That will see inflation soaring up again. So he's holding this very tight fiscal line. But it is clear that there are Conservatives on the backbenches who are getting fed up with this. There's this Conservative Growth Coalition founded by Liz Truss and her allies. Simon Clarke's at the head of that. And it definitely looks like they're going to be causing trouble in the months ahead.
The new ERG.
The new ERG, exactly.
What about the old ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights? Would Sunak, to show his right-wing credentials, would he have the guts to pull Britain out of that?
Yes, this is a really interesting one. It's something which he's floating. Whether he could actually see it through, it would be very difficult practically to actually see through. It would help show his right-wing credentials, but the problem for Rishi Sunak at the moment is he is fighting on so many fronts. The Trussites, the sort of market liberalites, aren't particularly fussed about the ECHR. Some of them are, but on the whole, that's not their sort of brand of right-wingery. So if Sunak tries to sort of do that to show them that he means business, that he means Conservative business, it might not go down particularly well. And at the same time, it will infuriate those on the left of the party. Alicia Kearns, Jackie Doyle-Price have already said this morning, that, they don't want the willy waving, was the word Jackie Doyle-Price used, over the ECHR. And she thinks it's just, posturing, essentially. So he's trying to fight on these two different fronts here, the market liberalites, the Thatcherites in the party, and then the sort of left of the party. And they both want very different things. And Rishi Sunak's trying to sort of triangulate and may end up making everyone unhappy.
And the awful thing is most people don't really want a party to be appeased. They want the national interest put first. And what is the right thing? Is it right to be pulling out of an international convention on human rights, which was, the brainchild of Winston Churchill?
Well, yeah, there's a danger that Rishi Sunak has to concentrate so much on trying to keep his party happy and trying to keep his divided party together that he does sort of forget that it's the national interest which has to be put first, and that there are, as you say, plenty of people who aren't necessarily Conservative voters, swing voters, who won't respond well to any of this.
Yeah. Olivia, appreciate all of that. Olivia Utley is our political reporter. Thank you very much indeed. And the time, 16 minutes past 8.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. And the head teacher at Epsom College has been found dead alongside her husband and her 7-year-old daughter. The bodies of Emma Pattinson, her daughter Letty and her husband George were found at the prestigious boarding school in the early hours of yesterday morning. Surrey police are investigating but say they're confident it's an isolated incident with no third-party involvement.
A magnitude 7.8 earthquake shook both Turkey and Syria early this morning. It's leaving a death toll of more than 500. That figure likely to rise, we're told. Many buildings have collapsed and rescue teams are searching through the rubble for survivors.
Beyonce broke the record for the most number of Grammy Awards of all time when she won her 32nd award last night. The American singer won the Best Dance Electronic Music Album for Renaissance. And the actress Viola Davis got EGOT status. That's a group of people who've won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar and a Tony. Davis won audiobook narration for her memoir, Finding Me.
Footage of Nicola Bulley on the day of her disappearance has been shared by her friends. Video shows Nicola loading her car for the school run before going on that fateful Riverside walk.
Well, the search is continuing this morning for the 45-year-old. Let's cross over to our reporter, Sophie Reaper. Good morning to you, Sophie. It seems as though this search is intensifying a little bit.
Good morning to you both. That is indeed the case. The latest update that we have, you mentioned there, Eamonn, was that pictures were released yesterday of Nicola Bulley on the morning of Friday, the 27th of January, the morning that she went missing. Now, the images were taken from her Ring doorbell. They show her wearing a long, dark coat with her hair pulled into a ponytail as she loaded her car ahead of taking her two children to school. Now, that morning, we know that Nicola took her dog Willow for a walk down on the banks of the River Wyre, and police say they're focusing on what they're calling a crucial 10-minute window between 9:10 and 9:20 that morning. We know that at 9:01 Nicola logged into a Teams meeting, and that at 9:10 she was recognised by someone who knew her, but after that things become a lot less certain. We know that she remained logged into that Teams meeting even after it had finished at 9:30. And we know that her phone was then found at 9:33 by another dog walker who also found her dog Willow running around nearby. Now, police say their main working hypothesis is that Nicola got into difficulties and fell into the river. And as part of that theory, Lancashire Police will this morning be joined by independent search team SGI, who have offered their services free of charge. Now, not only are they going to be providing more support to Lancashire Police, they also have specialist sonar equipment, which they say about that, if there is a body in the river, our sonar will detect it.
OK, Sophie, thank you. It is the mystery that is gripping the nation, isn't it? So many people wondering what on earth has happened to Nicola Bulley. Thank you.
90 minutes past 8. We'll take a break after that. We've got an amazing story. We've got a man called Ian Arthur. He's a former Navy sailor, and he's going to talk about an operation which transformed his nose. Absolutely amazing. Ian says he's got his life back. He's rejoined the human race. You can judge for yourself after this.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamonn.
Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
For watching our little programme this morning, and if you stay tuned, this is what we've still got to come.
It's okay to pull, is it okay, not it's okay, is it okay to pull the occasional sickie? We'll be talking about that at 8:45 when we speak to an employee wellness expert who says it's good to prioritise your mental health and take a day off.
Well, what? Your physical health and your mental health? Who knows? One of those two.
Annual leave.
I'd take a sickie if they come in. 9:10, we're going to be hearing from our royal reporter, Kinsey Schofield.
Yes, she'll be talking about Prince Harry's romp when he lost his virginity. More details about that and their declining popularity across the pond.
And you can have your say. Let us know what you do. Are you sickie prone? Andy in Dorset says, I took a day off sick. I never went back because I hated the job. Kathy says, not everybody works in offices. And as always, it only seems to be the people, those are the only people mentioned. Other workers in factory shops and foundries don't have the privileges to do the same as working from home and getting paid. That's very true.
I like this one.
Very
Anne
true.
in Walton says, when I was a student nurse, if we rang in sick, matron frequently called round with flowers. So one had to be in bed just in case.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have a voice? Do you have a voice?
What do you mean, a sick voice?
Yes.
No, if I'm sick, I will call it. I haven't done have you done a sickie, Eamonn Holmes?
I've never been off sick
right.
except for my major surgery.
Oh, right. Did you?
Unlike you, who's like every sort of 6 weeks who seems to disappear. But I'm just saying, it's Isabel here. I'm not too well. Not too well.
Never done it in my life. Unbelievable, says he, who's been off. Anyway.
Yes, but I had my limbs pulled out and disjointed and broken, you know.
Yeah.
There's a difference. I'm hardly bluffing that one.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take the sting.
Yeah.
Look, this is an amazing story, and this should be a really good, feel-good story for people because, you know, a lot of people have things wrong with their bodies and things that they think they just have to live with. Not so for our next guest, Ian Arthur, thanks to Dr. Cormac Convery. Ian was a sailor, and he suffered from what was called, I hope I've got this right, rhinophima, which is a disfiguring thing that you can have on your nose. And you're looking there and you're saying, which one of these men has the bad nose?
Neither is the answer.
Neither, as it turns out, absolutely. So let's talk to Ian and the doctor, Dr. Cormac Convery. Doctor, before we begin, before I talk to Ian, what is, I'm sure I haven't pronounced that correctly, rhinophima? What is it?
It's rhinophima, which is a rare subgroup of rosacea, which is a much commoner condition. But it's, as Ian will tell you, it's very distressing and impactful to those who suffer this uncommon condition.
Okay, so Ian, tell us a little bit about it, because you weren't born with this condition. You had a perfectly lovely nose, and then the condition got progressively worse, or you could say regressively worse. Tell us a little bit about what it was like.
It started about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, just gradual at first, and all of a sudden it started building up, and it became like that. And I started to become a bit of a recluse. I'm a photographer, professional photographer for 40 years. I like talking to people, going out, liaising with people, and a lot of it is face-to-face contact. And one of the first things that happen when you meet somebody is they'll always look at your eyes, look at your mouth, look at your nose. But then if your nose is a little bit disfigured, they tend to look at your nose. And so I started retreating backwards, really, and become a little bit of a recluse and stop doing less work because I was embarrassed to go out.
I think, Ian, a lot of people will look at that. People will see that and they'll be able to identify with people that they know.
And that's where Cormac came in.
And the great Dr. Convery then was able to change things. But before Dr. Convery came along, what were doctors saying to you? Were they saying there was nothing they could do? Were they saying rub ointment on it? What were they saying to you?
I went to the GP about 2.5. In fact, it was just as COVID finished, and they gave me some ointment, which was like a facial scrub. And all it did was just take a top layer of skin off. And I wasn't happy with that because it just made a mess. And so early on last year, I went to see my GP again. I said, is there something we can do about it? And she says, well, I'll make a referral to the dermatology clinic. And I still haven't had a referral. And so by November, end of November, I was getting pretty down about it. And that's when I started looking for other alternatives.
Well, let's go to the doctor now, Ian. But pity the doctor can't operate on your ears as well. But just go, Dr. Convery. Where basically did you begin? I mean, when you look at this, how did you tackle what was wrong with Ian?
So basically with the rhinophyma, we have an excessive growth of vascular and glandular tissue on the lower part of the nose typically. And really it's a case of my approach is to sculpt the nose, and we're trying to reveal the real nose underneath. And one of the things I'd like to pick up on what Ian said about how we look at people, when we've mapped how we look at people, we don't actually look at noses. And I always say that noses should be invisible. And a nose is unlikely to be anything other than a negative facial feature. As with anything else, there will be exceptions to that, but in the vast majority of cases, that's the reality. And we wanted to make Ian's nose invisible again so we could re-expose and reintroduce him to the world, because as you can see, he does like to talk.
Well, Dr. Convery, you managed to do that with a laser. You sculpted it, and I believe it cost in the region of £3,000. And Ian, the recovery, I think after as soon as 2 weeks, you were feeling brand new. Were you surprised at what a success it was, how easy it was relatively?
Oh, it was the best feeling in the world. I mean, I know that what I had was a disfigurement, and some people have disfigurements a whole lot worse. This was only small, but it was enough to affect me mentally. And after having this done, I just felt like a new person, and I didn't feel ashamed to go out. I've just joined a health club and I go swimming most days, and I just feel like a normal person again.
Well, Doc, the really scary thing, it's fantastic to know that you, with your expertise, and that there's the ability to turn something like this around. But the really scary thing is that it can happen in the first place, and it happened to Ian 5-6 years ago. Does that mean it could happen to any of us, or is there certain predispositions some people have?
So, Eamonn, unfortunately, with your genetic background similar to mine, you're in the higher risk category, because rosacea generally happens more in Celtic type skin. We're the world leaders at it, and it's a subgroup of them who will be more likely to develop a rhinophyma. One of the horrible things about rhinophyma is that people are not only underappreciated visually, but they're also judged. And it's very common for people to assume that a patient with a rhinophyma is a heavy drinker or an alcoholic, and this is simply not the case. And we've heard this time and again where patients are not only struggling with how they look, but they just feel like they're being judged for how they look as well.
Well, thank goodness there are people like you guys. We'd love to talk more, and Ian, I know you'd love to talk more, but we've got to stop it right there, okay?
Oh, fair enough.
Love the skin you're in. Love that new nose of yours, Dr. Convery. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you. Good
Ian
talking to you both.
And Dr. Convery, and I love that it was his daughter that gave him the confidence to, pursue a little bit of a different approach. And the fact he's still waiting for a dermatologist appointment. Sometimes you just have to take the matter into your own hands if you can, and do exactly as he did. Fascinating. Let us know your experiences if you've ever had anything like that.
We'll take a break and we're going to be back with the papers. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
welcome back. It's coming up to 20 to 9 and time to go through the papers one last time, joined by the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the broadcast and podcast host, Sean McDonald. Sean, let's start with you. This is the ongoing, mystery, really, of what has happened to Nicola Bulley. Door cam pictures now showing just an hour before she vanished.
Yeah, we did talk about this one at the top of the show, but there has been a bit of a development as well as the investigation kind of goes on. There's an independent riverbed search team, surveying team, and I think they've got access to sonar equipment which is able to show every stick and stone on the riverbed, which would hopefully help shed some light if the unthinkable
The thing,
were to
Sean,
be the
about
case.
these doorbell pictures that we've got here is this looks like any mum going about her business at that time of the day, loading up the car, putting the dog in the back of the car, putting the kids in the car. It doesn't look like someone who wasn't intending coming home again.
Absolutely, it's casting aspersions on the hypothesis that's been presented by the police that, you know, to say that there's been an accident, she's possibly been swept away. There have been people expressing concern about that as well, because then the public might switch off and think, OK, well, you know, that's it concluded. I think her family and friends have taken the very unusual step of putting out a statement to say that they think the police are maybe missing something. They don't know why they're kind of coming to that conclusion. There's been a lot of sort of conversation as well about sort of people, unwanted speculation, let's say, or people turning up and trying to sort of come to conclusions as to what's happened.
Well, you know, if there's a void, people will fill it, and there's another mystery in Surrey, Dawn. Emma Pattison, who's the head teacher of Epsom College. She's been found dead with her husband, George, and her young daughter, Letty.
A little 7-year-old, yeah. It's just a tragic story. It happened. Three bodies were found at 1 a.m. on Sunday morning in the grounds of Epsom College. She had only just started as head teacher of the school. It's a very top private school. And as I said, the 3 bodies were found. Little 7-year-old Letty in the grounds. Police have said it may be an isolated incident with no third party involved, but obviously everybody at the college is shocked. The staff and the students are shocked, and it's just a horrible, sad thing to happen. I mean,
I just look at that picture and you do not know what's going on in other people's lives, do you?
No, you really don't, Eamonn, and that's the thing. And it's like you look at that as such a happy, lovely picture, but you don't know how people are feeling, what they're going on, and that's why I wanted to do this story as well, because it's like it's 2 incredibly sad stories, and both involving children. And you think of our Nicola's 2 little girls, and the one that, I mean, Isabel, you know, you've got young children yourself, and sort of like one of the little girls went to school with her hair done slightly differently. It wasn't how mummy did it, because obviously dad's looking after them now. And it's little details like that that bring home the reality of these stories.
How do 2 little girls who are going to school just a few hundred metres from where the riverbed is being searched for their mother continue to carry on? And how do the family, you know, look after those girls going forward? I mean, it seems an impossible thing to navigate. And, you know, whatever, I mean, it doesn't look good, whatever has happened, but they need closure, don't they, to be able to move forward?
The worst thing about this story is you always hope. Until you get that closure, you will always hope against hope. And I think if you love anybody, you can always imagine what it's like, that they take the dog for a walk, go to, you know, kids playing football. They just never come home.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Let's go to the front page of the Telegraph. Truss to challenge the Prime Minister over China. She's saying we must stand up to Beijing.
Yeah, Liz Truss issuing fresh challenge amidst much condemnation and criticism from different factions of the Conservative Party and the supporters. She's basically saying this, that the PM has to be strong enough to stand up to Beijing and to China, and it comes in the wake of what are we calling it, the spy balloon in China. China saying that it's been a weather balloon that's been sort of misinterpreted. So there are security concerns, and I think it would be naive to suggest that there wouldn't be some areas of concern between the Chinese and the West. But it seems Sunak supporters are basically saying this is an attempt to destabilise him, to undermine the Prime Minister's influence or authority.
Well, it is. I mean, she's shaping up for a fight, doesn't she? She wants to bring him down. What do you think about Liz Truss coming out from under a stone. What do you think, Dawn?
I think she should stay under the stone, to be honest with you. Look, I mean, a lot of Tories are saying that her economic policy potentially wasn't a bad thing. It was just the way it was executed. It was rushed through. None of the financial institutions were consulted about what was going on. That caused the panic. So I get that, but, I mean, that was her doing. She was in charge. She was the one that rushed it through. She didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But now all this infighting, it's just like, can someone just get on with running the damn country?
It is a gift to the opposition, as you were saying earlier. Sure, Labour don't have to say anything on this. They just sit back and go, thank you very much.
That's it. They can watch them undo themselves. The Conservatives seem to have just been their own worst enemy, and I think that is now going to pay dividends for Labour at the next general election. I think we're going to see them absolutely decimated, and they really have nobody to blame but themselves. But Truss will still find a way. She blamed left-wing economic institutions or commentators. It was like, it was you that did it, numbskull. Like, you made the choices, you made these decisions.
I know.
You fall on your own sword.
Well, she also criticised them for not warning her. But then, at the same time, it was their fault that, you know, she was critical of the institution's existence and anything, and then she wanted their advice. Well, which is it?
Can you just start working together, stop the infighting and sort out the mess we're all in?
Yeah.
Cleaning burns more calories than dancing. What if you clean and dance at
I
the
was
same
about to say that. That's how all cleaning should be done, with the music on loud.
There used to be an advert for a carpet cleaner called Shake and Vac.
Do the shake and vac and put the threshing back.
Maybe that's why cleaning is good for calorie-wise, because people end up doing a bit of both.
Well, absolutely. Look, I had actually Saturday morning off, and what did I do? I ended up cleaning my kitchen. But this is curiously enough, it's a survey by a cleaning company called Home Aglow, and they have discovered that 50 minutes of cleaning your kitchen in particular, because there's lots of ups and downs, burns more calories than an hour of ballroom dancing or a long bike ride. Cleaning a kitchen is 276 calories, and the hour-long bike ride is 292.
Well, it's not very many, is it?
It doesn't sound that many.
But which would you rather? That's the question. You'd rather dance than clean the kitchen.
I would rather dance, I'd rather dance on a bike than clean the kitchen. I mean, I did do my bit over the weekend, but I just think it's a bit of fun, and they're recommending, you know, you actually squat rather than just bending down while they. So you're using
that's a good idea. So when you're getting, you know,
so you're doing
in
your
the back of the oven,
you're doing your squats and your thrusting.
Your squats and your thrusts. Excellent.
Eamonn's looking at me in a very weird way there.
No, I'm not. No, because see, I'm being taught as I rise now. I'm being taught to use my tailbone to stick my bottom out and rise, because apparently tennis players get all their power from their haunches, from their buttocks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And your gluteus maximus or whatever
that's the biggest muscle in the body.
Yeah, that's right. Some people it's bigger than others.
I know, quite, yes.
Sean, Harry Kane, he's not short of a muscle or two, and now he's showing his true abilities with his goal-scoring.
Yeah, Harry Kane has just hit number 267 to overtake the legendary Jimmy Greaves, a record that a lot of people thought would probably never be surpassed. A fantastic achievement. I think it's now going to open up speculation as to whether he's hit the milestone that was waiting for him. Is he now going to move on? He wants to maybe win trophies. Is he going to play abroad? I think the irony that his goal came against Man City, doing their North London rivals Arsenal a massive favour. He's still got a long way to go to be the Premier League's top scorer. I think Alan Shearer and Wayne Rooney have acknowledged, or they've said, catch us if you can. So, you know, let's see if
they've been very magnanimous, haven't they? Said, that's brilliant, well done, Harry, but, you know,
they're not
don't
happy.
break my record.
Yeah, but when a player says that they're happy to see their record surpassed, I'm like, you liar.
Liar.
There's no way. You're a hyper-competitive individual in a very competitive sport. You're not happy. Stop lying.
Stop lying.
Good point.
But he's a bit of a rarity nowadays, like an out-and-out centre forward.
He's like a number 9, Roy the Rovers stuff in it.
Yeah.
I mean, would you take him at United?
Yes.
Do you think they'll go for him?
Yes, I mean, I think Marcus Rashford's absolutely superb, but I don't think he's an out-and-out number 9.
He likes to drop deep and link play, doesn't he?
Do you think Harry will go? I get the sense that he's very happy where he is.
I think...
No, he's not very happy where he is. He'll go abroad. He'll go abroad for all the reasons that Sean said there. I think it would be a big ask to go to United.
Yeah, I think Manchester United definitely the ascendancy, but he might fancy a fresh challenge. And if you look at Real Madrid, Karim Benzema, he's been there for a long time, obviously just won the Ballon d'Or. He may seek fresh opportunity elsewhere. Football's cyclical, isn't it? They might move him on. Real Madrid, they don't stay too hung up on the players.
I'd just like to point out that actually in Premiership goals, top
Yes,
flight goals.
yes.
Sir Geoff Hurst is still above Harry Kane, West Ham, obviously.
There you go.
Who was?
Sir Geoff Hurst.
Oh yeah. Gosh, amazing! Just want to see that list.
Yeah, look at the list. It's amazing.
Remember all the greats there.
Do you remember that one from 1892, Eamonn?
Funny enough, Steve Bloomer. No, don't remember that there. But you look at people like Ian Rush there, Tony Cuddy, Geoff Hurst. You're right there, Rooney. Dennis Law,
yeah,
the
some great
lawman.
names in there.
Legendary. Lovely. Guys, appreciate that. Thank you. Been lovely having you both today. Come back again and see us soon. Thank you both, Sean and Dawn. Thank you.
OK, let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories. And it is predicted to be the biggest day of industrial action in the history of the NHS as nurses and ambulance staff are walking out in a dispute over pay. The Royal College of Nursing will stage a 2-day strike and it's expected to be joined by twice as many of its members as it did during earlier strikes.
Teachers in Scotland are due to walk out today in a dispute. This one's over pay. Final strike in the recent campaign of industrial action, but more walkouts are on the horizon as there has been no agreement. Teaching unions demanding 10% rise for their members, but the Scottish Government has only offered them 5%.
And the Princess of Wales has urged school children to keep talking about their feelings as she marked the start of Children's Mental Health Week. Kate joined pupils in London's East End in raising the importance of being open with feelings after she launched her Shaping Us campaign last week, which raises the profile of early years development for children.
Actually, we decided to keep Dawn and Sean here in the studio as we talk about sickies, because today is basically the day, Dawn, where it rises, where it'll be at its peak at the time of the year and the time of the month and that sort of thing. And there's two ways of looking at this. I mean, everybody's human. Everybody can decide, well, I need a day off. But as employers as well, if you were running a newspaper and you got a staff, a business, or, whatever it happens to be, it's no joke.
It's really no joking. I was thinking when I first read this story, if you're like a small business like High Street Bakers where you've got like 2 people coming in, if one of those people pulls a sickie, you're in serious trouble, and businesses are trying to recover from the pandemic, as we know in any case. But even if you're running a fairly large business, like I was, running a newspaper for 15 years, just one person going down puts so much pressure on everybody else. It's really not fair.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of employee wellness expert Ali Fakaki, who joins us this morning. Ali, look, a lot of people might be watching this thinking everybody's gone a bit soft and pulling sickies left, right and centre, but you're of the view that stress is appreciated, the impact it can have on people's lives, and people perhaps need to take the odd day.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think to quote Kate Middleton, we do need to talk about our feelings and we do need to break down the stigma around mental health. I think, we've all taken a sickie here and there. I'm sure it's almost an open secret by now, and I can completely understand the concern, which is that, if you are a small business or even a large business, people taking sickies is a pretty big problem. But I think that what it really touches on is around the larger topic of mental health. We're far past the debate that we should destigmatize mental health. And I think the workplace is such a key battleground for the destigmatization, because companies have got to be open and have healthier conversations around the topic of how we're feeling. What the data shows is really only a tiny fraction of our sick days are down to mental health officially. But actually, the majority of employees tell a report that actually they do take sick days because of their mental health. So I think the real issue here is that employees are just too afraid or too uncomfortable to tell their employees that they don't actually have the flu, that they're anxious or they're feeling depressed. So I think if companies want to combat sickies, because we all want less sickies in the world, we want to get people to come back into work. And I think companies need to be more mindful of what's going on inside their workplace.
Ali, with the best will in the world, I just have to say, faking mental health or saying, oh, it's my mental health, I can't come into work, it's the easiest thing in the world. I mean, this morning, I didn't feel good this morning. Was that my mental health, or just did I not have enough sleep, or what was it? I mean, I could have said, my mental health's not good today. Wouldn't have been a lie. Wouldn't have definitely been the truth. But it's the easy, as an employer, it must be the easiest thing to fake.
Well, look, I'm an employer myself, and I definitely think that this topic calls for some empathy in the sense that, what's more important, I think, to ask is, why are people wanting to fake sick days? Why are people asking to take time off? Look, life right now isn't easy in the UK. We're in the middle of winter. The cost of living crisis is very well documented. Companies left and right are cutting costs and laying people off. And there's a lot of reasons to stay in bed. Especially this morning. But I think the real debate needs to be more on what employers are going to do to ensure they're creating a thriving environment, that people look forward to coming into work, that people can flag issues if they're having them, rather than feel like the only option is to DOS off or take a day off. People obviously do get sick. People do, you mentioned you could take a mental health day and you probably wouldn't be too far off. So, I don't think every sick day is a ruse, especially a mental health sick day. But I think the real question is, if you're not actually sick, what's going on? If lots of people are pulling lots of sickies at a company, it's a red flag, and employers need to think about that.
Sean McDonald, I want to bring you into the conversation. I would assume that if somebody is having mental health reasons that they want to call in sick, that is technically still a sickie because it's your health, it's your mental health. But those people who are actually going on holiday or having a long weekend or out on the lash, that's what I've got no time for.
Yeah, I think, I would define sickness as something that impedes your ability to work and to contribute as part of the team that you're a part of. I think it's good to see the pendulum swinging more towards individuality and focusing on the individual, but then there's the danger of swinging to hyper-individualism. And I mean, if I want to be really extreme about it, it seems a wee bit reminiscent of the sort of individualism propagated by Thatcher in the 1980s, of it's just the individual and you're all that matters. There has to be some sort of balance. You're part of a team. You can't leave people high and dry that you work with. If Eamonn decided he wasn't coming in, I mean, what would you have done? You might have been...
That's the only reason I came in. I thought, what would Isabel do?
Yeah, exactly.
What would she do without me?
So you'd have been holding the fort. So I think it's good. I do agree that empathy is required, but there's also maybe a wee bit of... come on, let's also go, because I take Eamonn's point as well. Is my mental health suffering, or did I just struggle to sleep last night? And I suppose it's striking that balance. It probably requires trust between employer and employee as well.
Very sensible.
I think there's a lot of emphasis here on the employees, isn't there? And I completely understand if you are suffering from mental health, and that's a proper illness, then you phone in and you say, this is my problem, I have a mental health issue, and don't pull a sickie, because it's like, people will cry wolf as well, as we all know, we use it as an excuse. And this is all about, what about the employer? What about the businesses that are struggling, as we've already said, to recover from the pandemic? Now, what about the pressures on the businesses we're talking about here?
Well, we've got to say goodbye to Dawn Neeson, Sean McDonald. Thank you both very much, and thank you to Ali Makaki as well for flying the flag for
Barcelona. In Barcelona, I'd rather be where he is. That's the place to be.
We'll be back after a very quick break.
Thank you.
Should have pulled a sickie.
How long on the break?
Hello, very good morning to you. Clear skies overnight across much of England and Wales means there's some frost and fog around to start, but then we'll have sunny spells, whilst in the north it's looking cloudier with some drizzly rain. The reason for the settled weather across much of the UK is this area of high pressure, but that's going to clear away towards the east, and then this weather front waiting out in the west is going to arrive as we go later on in the day. Through this morning there is some fog to watch out for, particularly across parts of the east and southeast of England, but that should clear as we go through the morning, and so the things will be largely bright for a time, but we are going to see the cloud in the northwest spreading somewhat, so many places turning cloudier through the day. The thickest cloud across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland with some outbreaks of drizzly rain, but because of the southerly flow that we have, I am expecting some brighter breaks to develop across northern parts of Scotland, and here that's where temperatures are going to be highest, could get into double figures. As we go through the end of the day, that front that I mentioned earlier is going to push its way in from the northwest. So a spell of rain reaching into northwest Scotland and then later into Northern Ireland, gradually making its way southeastwards overnight. Ahead of this, across parts of England and Wales, again, we're going to have largely clear skies, which means temperatures are going to plummet. Could get as low as -4, -5 Celsius, so a widespread and at times harsh frost, and once more likely to see some fog and freezing fog developing, which could cause some problems through Tuesday morning's rush hour. As we go through Tuesday itself, though, that front is gradually going to make its way southwards. It is going to bring some rain, but it's weakening and breaking up as it goes, so many places staying largely dry. Some bright sunny spells developing to the north of this and staying largely sunny towards the south, though notice temperatures a bit disappointing, a bit below average for the time of year, milder further north. There will be some further changeable weather to come as we go through this week, and after a dry start in the south, I am expecting a little bit of rain by the end of the week even here, and with that, temperatures probably picking up, so a chilly start but turning somewhat milder. See you later.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
The biggest round of NHS counts in history starts today.
Hello there, 9 o'clock's the time. Very good to see you on this Monday, the 6th of February. This is Breakfast on GB News, online, on radio, on TV, on your everything, on whatever apparatus you have. Eamonn and Isabel here.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Tens of thousands of nurses and ambulance workers in England and Wales will go on strike today. NHS leaders have called this the biggest round of industrial action in its history. And the Health Minister, Maria Caulfield, has told us this morning that the government can't afford to meet the demands.
Difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. We just can't afford inflation busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
Liz Truss continues her comeback campaign. She's been called delusional after speaking out for the first time since being ousted as Prime Minister, arguing she wasn't given a realistic chance to implement her fiscal plans.
A special diving team will use helicopter and sonar technology to assist in the search for Nicola Bulley. This comes as new CCTV footage has been released showing her movements about an hour before she disappeared.
Have you ever faked a sickie? If you're thinking about it, today's the day to do it. The first Monday in February, when most people call in sick, we'll be asking if it's okay to skive off work. Well, occasionally.
I think I'm more like the person that comes in coughing and sneezing and people wish I'd stayed at home. Let us know your thoughts on any of the topics we're discussing this morning. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or if Twitter is your thing, at GBNews. So our top story this morning, it is the biggest day of strikes in the NHS's 75-year history, beginning this morning as nurses in England and some in Wales stage a 12-hour strike over pay and conditions.
Well, alongside nurses, many ambulance workers will take industrial action in a dispute over pay and staffing. Patients could again face disruption to operations and appointments, though nurses are continuing to provide emergency care.
Well, earlier we spoke to Health Minister Maria Caulfield, who urged the unions to call off the strikes and get back to the table.
It's difficult for us now. If we are to give a pay award to nurses, we'll have to look at teachers, we'll have to look at ambulance drivers. We just can't afford inflation-busting pay rises that the unions are currently demanding.
You're talking about being the custodians of the public purse, and yet the public actually understand why they are asking for what they're asking.
Well, absolutely. But my disappointment, I guess, with the RCN this morning is that in Scotland they've called off the strikes because they're prepared to talk about this year's pay rise, which starts from April. We are in exactly the same boat. We are very happy, and the Secretary of State has been discussing this year's pay award and working conditions with them, but they've called off the strikes in Scotland but not in England. So my plea to the RCN is we're very happy to discuss this year's pay award, and we'd really value them calling off the strikes and getting back round the table.
OK, let's get more in the background to all of this. Our national reporter, Ellie Costello.
Enough is enough! It's the first time that nurses and ambulance staff have joined the picket line together. It's poised to be the biggest strike in NHS history. So, who's involved? While continuing its series of strikes, the Royal College of Nursing expects more than 30,000 nurses to walk out across 73 NHS trusts in England. Previous action involved up to 55 trusts. The GMB union believes more than 10,000 ambulance workers will also take part in strikes across 7 regions in England and Wales. And the Unite union is preparing for around 2,600 of its members to walk off the job in 4 English regions and in Wales. All 3 unions are demanding better pay and conditions. They blame the government for underfunding the NHS and its staff for years.
And I've never been more concerned about patient safety, and nor have my colleagues. Patients are not getting the treatment they deserve, and we are not able to deliver the care that we've signed up to give them. All around, all we want is a better deal, not for just the staff, but for the patients. They deserve so much better.
It just can't continue. It's too heartbreaking. It's a job that I love, but I need to pay my bills, and we need to keep people in the profession. Nursing students don't want to be nurses. Experienced nurses are leaving. There will be no one left. And I don't blame them, but I can't imagine doing anything else.
The strike will cause disruption. Thousands of operations and appointments face being cancelled, and a bank holiday-style service is expected in many areas. 62-year-old Gary Coogan has been waiting for triple bypass surgery for nearly 2 years.
It feels like all the institutions you've paid into, when it comes around to you needing them, they let you down for their own reasons, but I'm not the one that's put any of these institutions into these situations.
The The Royal College of Nursing has agreed to staff chemotherapy centres, emergency cancer services, dialysis, critical care units, neonatal and paediatric intensive care. The Department for Health and Social Care says that by accepting the independent pay review body recommendations, we have given over 1 million NHS workers a pay rise of at least £1,400 this year. Talks between the government and the unions are continuing, but union bosses warn there'll be more action unless a serious offer on pay is made. Ellie Costello, GB News.
And another week, and so we go on with these strikes. Let's hear from GB News presenter, Daily Mail consultant editor. He is Mr. Andrew Pearce. Andrew, morning. I can't sniff an end in sight for any of this.
No, and I can tell you cynically, ministers think the public is beginning to wash over the public. People have become almost a sense of fatigue. Oh, they're on strike again. Oh, they're on strike again. If you look at the support for people like the train drivers, I think it's disintegrating very fast. I think there's always going to be a soft spot for the nurses, but I can't sense that Maria Crawford said there's negotiations. There's not very serious negotiations going on with Steve Barclay, the Health Secretary, at all. However, I hear in the budget, which is only in March, there's going to be something good for the nurses. It could be a one-off payment, but that's another 6 weeks away, and we could have 6 more weeks of strikes. And so far, these strikes have meant 88,000 operations have been cancelled.
They're not very good strikes. Huh? They're not very good strikes. No. And I don't know what it says legally or what you're allowed to do or not, but I mean, if you want someone to pay attention to you, you walk out and you stay out.
That's right. And of course, they're guaranteeing levels of cover. You and I, Eamonn, are old enough to remember the winter of discontent in 1978 when things just shut down. Because the trains were on strike, which meant there was no any oil going to the power station. So it's not like that now. There was 13 million trade unions in 1978, 6 million today. They don't have the power they used to have to bring the country grinding to a halt. They're talking of a general strike. It just doesn't feel like one.
Okay.
Well, we can now talk to the Shadow Minister for Employment, Alison McGovern, is there for us now this morning. Hello, Alison. Here we are, another week of these dreadful strikes. They go on and on and on. You're the Shadow Minister for Employment. How do you keep people in jobs? How do you keep people happy? I mean, because part of it has got to be that, hasn't it?
To keep people in jobs, they do need decent pay, they need decent working conditions. And I think with reference to the situation in the NHS today, my worry is not only that lots of working people, including those in our NHS, over the past decade or more, haven't really had a proper pay rise, but also our health service staff are dealing with structural failures, like the failure to have a proper social care system. That means we can't get people out of hospital who don't need to medically be there, putting loads of pressure on NHS colleagues, which means that there's so much stress that too many of our NHS staff are actually leaving. So I think it's kind of like a bad circle at the moment where working conditions are not great, pay is not great, and nor do we have the kind of long-term plan that we need to fix it. That's why Labour's priority has been identifying resources so that we can bring more staff in to try to get that long-term plan so that the NHS can be that great service we want.
It's interesting, we heard from Jonathan Ashworth over the weekend, the first time we've heard from Labour that they would not pay the 10% or thereabouts, which NHS strikers are asking for. So my question to you would be, what then, if you're refusing 10%, would be your solution to these strikes?
Well, the first solution is for government ministers to pick up the phone and to talk, because I was actually dismayed with the coverage over the weekend where we had trade union leaders describing that they were finding it extraordinarily difficult to get any contact at all with government ministers. And I think that's a ridiculous state of affairs. Obviously, I am not a government minister. We are in the opposition. If we had a Labour government tomorrow, that would be the first thing that would be different. And we would want to find a deal. As you know, we can't do that from opposition, but what we can do is identify ways that we could bring more resources in, try to get more colleagues into the NHS to deal with the workload issues and the stress and the strain. And I think that would be a better plan. But without even the beginnings of a proper negotiation, these strikes are not going to be brought to an end. But the government can change that today. They can get around the table and try to help.
Let's broaden it out, Alison, if we can, to talk about other industries and manufacturing in particular. You've identified 40,000 manufacturers who say that they're struggling to find the right people with the right skills for jobs. Where are we going wrong there?
Well, I think part of the problem is that manufacturing is based in specific parts of our country, the North and the Midlands in the main. And I think for too often, we have had decisions taken in Whitehall and Westminster. And, you know, it was Boris Johnson, a Conservative Prime Minister, who used to talk about levelling up. He seems to have given up on that now. So those manufacturers in places like where I'm from in Merseyside need to have the freedom to spend apprenticeships money bringing people into their business. They also need a local college that's going to work with them to make sure that they've got the right support to get the skills that they need. And we also need job centres to change, because I don't think that they're nearly focused enough on local economies, particularly places that have a lot of manufacturing where there are good, skilled jobs available. We shouldn't just be pushing people into any job. We should be trying to help them get the right skills, get an apprenticeship or another skills programme to get those good jobs. And I think that would be a win-win, because that would help manufacturing business succeed, and it would also help us to raise wages and raise skills in our economy, which is what we need to do.
Week this week, and we've been focusing this morning on BAE Systems. They've been celebrating 2,600 new apprentices and graduates in 2023. So it is happening in the country at the moment under a Conservative government. What exactly is it that you think is going wrong with the apprenticeship levy?
Well, can I just say that's great, and I think we should all applaud businesses who invest in the next generation. The problem with the apprenticeship levy is that it hasn't done what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to provide resources to train that next generation, but it's been massively underspent. Why? Because businesses tell us that it's just inflexible. It can't provide the kind of support that they need. So we want to support businesses and give them that flexibility. But as I said, it's got to be part of a package. And that's about saying we want to have more powers for local cities so that they can build the kind of economy they want. Every place needs that economic plan to support its future. We shouldn't be just writing places off. That means a good local college that can support skills. It means a proper apprenticeships where businesses invest, as we've just been talking about, but also, you know, not just writing people off and saying, go and get any job, making sure they get a really skilled job, which is not what job centres are doing at the moment. Under a Labour government, that would change.
OK, Alison McGovern, really good to get your thoughts this morning. Shadow Minister for Employment, thank you very much indeed. We're going to get the thoughts of Andrew Pearce, who's still in the studio with us this morning. What did you make of her comments on strikes?
She didn't have much to say, did she, really? And if they're not going to pay the nurses 10%, what are they going to pay them? They know the figures, so I think they need to be a bit more clear and specific, because they're attacking the Tories for not paying them enough. But how much would they pay them?
OK, we will have more from Andrew.
What do you make, Andrew, of apprenticeships? I mean, we're talking about this is National Apprenticeship Week, and there is, I always go back to this Blair government mantra, education, which resulted in so many young people and so many businesses probably thinking that third level tertiary education is the only way to progress in a career. Now that's open to debate, and it seems to be, when you look at apprenticeships now, people are saying, well, there is another way.
Yeah, when I was 16, leaving school, it was a very noble ambition to get an apprenticeship. My brother got an apprenticeship with British Rail. He's never been out of work, and he's in his 60s. That's what lots of people did. The Blair government brought in this ridiculous target of at least 50% of all school leavers should go to university. We know that some of them do university degrees in courses that I wouldn't want to call them Mickey Mouse, but some people have done. Too many people have gone to university. They leave with huge debts, and the whole student loan system is in chaos. I think we should encourage far more people to apprenticeships. Plumbers, they're royalty.
They are royalty, you're right there. Well, look, let's take a break. 9:15 is the time. When we come back, we're talking real royalty. Actual royalty. So we'll get Andrew's view on that right after this.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh yes, already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
9:19. Welcome back. We're talking about now a video of the Princess of Wales joining primary school children for arts and crafts, and it's been released with an important message behind the film.
There is indeed. Her Royal Highness is supporting Children's Mental Health Week, and this year's theme is Let's Connect. Our royal reporter Cameron Walker has the story.
Keep talking about your feelings and keep asking others how they're doing and helping them to talk about their feelings as well.
The Princess of Wales, using her status to break stigmas at the start of Children's Mental Health Week. Catherine's been patron of charity Place to Be for almost a decade. Improving emotional well-being of young children is something our future Queen has long been passionate about.
I'm delighted to be supporting Children's Mental Health Week yet again, and it's lovely to be here at St John's Primary School. It's been wonderful to speak to so many children here about the importance of connections and the important people in their lives too.
The princess built paper chains with the children, perhaps symbolising building connections with friends and family. That's because this year's theme is Let's Connect.
The aim is to build awareness and understanding of children and young people's mental health. All week, schools, families, youth groups will be getting involved and taking part. People thrive in communities, and when we have really good, positive connections with others, that's really, really good for our emotional health and well-being.
Nearly 78% of young people supported by Place to Be last year felt socially anxious. But with support, new data shows 2/3 of those with severe difficulties saw an improvement in their mental health.
I take deep breaths in and I drink a glass of water.
Last week, Her Royal Highness launched her legacy campaign, Shaping Us, which aims to raise awareness that the first 5 years of a child's life has a huge impact on their futures.
I'm a firm believer in giving children the skills that they need for life and focusing on their social and emotional development.
It's unclear what impact the campaign will have on the under-5s and whether it will have any effect on life outcomes. But what is clear is the Princess of Wales intends this to be her lifelong project. Cameron Walker, GB News.
Well, let's speak to Royal and Showbiz reporter Kinsey Schofield on this royal story. But I suppose the really interesting royal story, if I'm being truthful, is about Prince Harry and what he got up to behind a pub, which he misnamed in his book. Details.
Oh, my goodness. I don't like to talk about fornicating till at least 10 a.m., Isabel, so I'm breaking my rules for you. But that's right, Sasha Walpole coming out over the weekend talking exclusively to The Sun, saying, it's me. I'm the girl. I'm the girl that the older woman Harry lost his virginity to. But Isabel, she's younger than Meghan. So the idea that he would word it an older woman, somewhere out there, Elizabeth Hurley is sending Sasha a bouquet of flowers saying, thank God that the pressure's off me. Yeah. But yes, she's a digger driver. She's got 2 kids. And it's what everybody's talking about. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's the royal story du jour, isn't it?
Why can't he never remember anything correctly, though?
He makes it up.
Right?
There's so many inaccuracies in that book Spare. So many, again and again and again, the stories aren't right. He had a ghostwriter write it for him. He was challenged about the accuracy, but he said, doesn't matter. Yeah. Doesn't matter, it's a story.
Well, Kinsey, people getting fed up stateside then with the couple over there and not inviting them to important parties.
That's absolutely right. I mean, polling suggests that is Harry making the most money he's ever made in his life, and is he patting himself on the back? I bet he is. But the reality is polling suggests that they have fallen dramatically in favor here in the States. And Meghan was excluded from the Anastasia Oprah Winfrey party. They were seen at Ellen DeGeneres' vow renewals, but Ellen was canceled recently, so I wouldn't be bragging about that.
Oh, there we go. Kinsey, we've got to leave it there. Always fabulous to get your insights. Thank you very much indeed. And sorry to make you break your curfew there.
Yeah. Andrew, thank you very much indeed. There's so much more we could have talked about
today. We didn't even talk about Liz Truss, did we? One word.
Deluded.
Fabulous. Sorry,
very good,
Andrew.
very good.
We have to go.
The time's creeping towards 9:25. We will be back tomorrow morning from 6 through to 9:30. I hope you can join us.
Up next, it's Tom Harwood with The Briefing. But from us, goodbye. Have a lovely Monday.
Hello. Very good morning to you. Clear skies overnight across much of England and Wales means there's some frost and fog around to start, but then we'll have sunny spells, whilst in the north it's looking cloudier with some drizzly rain. The reason for the settled weather across much of the UK is this area of high pressure, but that's going to clear away towards the east, and then this weather front waiting out in the west is going to arrive as we go later on in the day. Through this morning there is some fog to watch out for, particularly across parts of the east and southeast of England, but that should clear as we go through the morning, and so the things will be largely bright for a time, but we are going to see the cloud in the northwest spreading somewhat, so many places turning cloudier through the day. The thickest cloud across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland with some outbreaks of drizzly rain, but because of the southerly flow that we have, I am expecting some brighter breaks to develop across northern parts of Scotland, and here that's where temperatures are going to be highest, could get into double figures. As we go through the end of the day, that front that I mentioned earlier is going to push its way in from the northwest. So a spell of rain reaching into northwest Scotland and then later into Northern Ireland, gradually making its way southeastwards overnight. Ahead of this, across parts of England and Wales, again, we're going to have largely clear skies, which means temperatures are going to plummet. Could get as low as -4, -5 Celsius, so a widespread and at times harsh frost, and once more likely to see some fog and freezing fog developing, which could cause some problems through Tuesday morning's rush hour. As we we go through Tuesday itself, though, that front is gradually going to make its way southwards. It is going to bring some rain, but it's weakening and breaking up as it goes, so many places staying largely dry. Some bright sunny spells developing to the north of this and staying largely sunny towards the south, though notice temperatures a bit disappointing, a bit below average for the time of year, milder further north. There will be some further changeable weather to come as we go through this week, and after a dry start in the south, I am expecting a little bit of rain by the end of the week even here, and with that, temperatures probably picking up, so a chilly start but turning somewhat milder. See you later.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio, and on